opportunity for members of the public that wish to comment on a matter not on the posted agenda to do so. We try to keep public comment to 3 minutes. It's not intended as a back and forth. And we try to keep comments to 3 minutes. I think I already said that. And does anyone have any public comment? Okay. The next item on our agenda is considering the common vicular license for Pizzaville. So would you like to come up and introduce yourselves? I was just asking Vanessa, is this a public hearing or not? Unlike a liquor license, not a public hearing. So it's a little more informal. You know, really just opportunity to kind of introduce yourselves, and, you know, we want to support local businesses. I know I'm a frequent patron of this fine establishment. So I don't think you have any problem from us getting it approved, but here's really an opportunity to talk about what you're looking to do with the business and things like that.
Yes, my name is Neil, and Sammy. Yeah, so we're gonna try to buy we're buying the business in 2 weeks, and we're trying to keep the recipe the same and really learn the process, what the existing owners have been doing, and then in 6 to 12 months, we want to improve and grow the business, add more items, gyros, and all this stuff. But we're in the process right now, and we're waiting for the board approval.
Okay. When you're talking about growing the business, you're talking about, like, you know, one thing that's always an issue there is parking, right? You know, because you got a very small number of parking spaces and so you're looking to change anything in relation to the,
No,
Okay.
not structurally. We're leaving everything the same structurally. Everything is going to be mainly a delivery business as it is right now. And we want to expand the menu, though. That is something that we did talk about. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you do takeout or do you? go over there?
There's no room, there's maybe a room for maybe 2 people to eat at a counter, am I right? Maybe not even that.
there's no
No,
seats.
yeah,
Right,
it's,
so
yeah.
it's takeout.
It's
You either go
takeout.
there in person or you have it delivered.
Takeout or delivery. Yeah.
okay. Marguerite, do you have any questions about?
No, I think it sounds great.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever owned a business like this before?
Not a pizzeria, but Sinan has experience, and
Yes.
Yeah.
I work before at the pizza store, and then I have a degree about that, and then I did many experience.
yeah.
And then in another country also too, my uncle, he has a restaurant, and then I work with him. And then in Dubai also, in another country,
Yeah.
in Middle East. And then, yeah, that's why I want to work with them. Yeah, we will work together forever. That's why we come to here for the business.
Sounds like
Yeah.
a good partnership. Is this your family's behind you?
Yes. Yeah.
So we truly do wish you great success. You know, as you know, food business is a hard business. You have to work hard, right? But we do hope you're successful. So
Yeah.
good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Looking forward to you guys having control.
Okay. Thank you.
Best of luck to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I move that the board approve the common vicular license for the new owners of Pizzaville.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, you'll bring them over?
Yep.
Okay, we're bringing over Matt Abrams and Bill Cundiff. So next item is our annual discussion of water rates, and we as the select board set the water rates. We have a presentation each year and a discussion about what the rates should be. So we've got in the packet a water rate study and a recommendation from Abraham's group. Bill, should I turn over to you or to Matt?
I'll just give a very brief introduction and then Matt can take over and give the presentation. We've been working with the Abrams Group for a number of years, ever since we actually became an enterprise fund and been operating solely out of the revenue from the customers on the water system, which is completely separate from the tax base. So the idea behind what we do here is we want to make the operation self-sufficient, and that's the idea behind an enterprise fund. So we as I said, we've established a certain protocol that Matt will review on how we implement our fee structure, and the fee structure is intended to offset our operating costs as well as our capital expenses. Since we met last year, we have a number of capital projects that we've identified and have them on the horizon to be implemented. So this plan that we're going to present tonight will reflect that, and we can have a little discussion on some of the capital items at the appropriate time if the board has some questions. So with that, I'll kick it over to Matt.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. This is Matt Abrahams from the Abrahams Group. I apologize that I could not be there in person this evening, but glad that at least there is a virtual option so that I can attend and move forward with the presentation. So we do have some slides to cover with you this evening. I was curious if I would be the one sharing them. Oh, I guess not. Okay. Great, thank you. Okay, so Matt Abrahams from the Abrahams Group, happy to be back before you this evening. As the select board and as Bill knows, we've been working with the town for many years now on water rates. And we are happy to help the town again with a similar study to what we've done in the past years. And because, as Bill mentioned as well, the process that we've been using the last few years has seemingly worked well for the town. We've continued to carry that forward. So the analysis was very similar to what we did last year and the year before. And also along those lines, the presentation that we have for you this evening is very similar to past years as well. So some of these slides may look familiar. Again, since it's worked well, we just thought it made sense to continue to focus on the same slides year over year. Before I cover what's on this slide, I just want to quickly mention that by working with town staff, we thought it was best for this year to review what was presented last year and see what that looked like. The select board may recall that when the decision was made last year at this time to increase water rates, I believe they were increased. Oh, it says right here on the screen, 15%. Last year, we also showed the board what we thought the rate plan would be in the subsequent years. As you know, we look forward multiple years into the future, and those future years we're showing as 9% annually. So that's an annual increase of 9%, starting with this upcoming fiscal year of FY27, going into the future annually 9%. We thought that was a good starting point to see what that looked like. And as we move forward, that's going to kind of be a theme as to what we were focused on with the study this year. Okay, so this slide presents recent results. What we've compiled for you on this slide is what has happened with rates and with the base charge each of the last, that's an 11-year look. We, meaning the Abrahams Group, assisted the town with rate setting for FY16, FY17, and then now for the last 5 years, FY21 to FY25. Actually, that should say 26. We help with 26 as well. So yes, we've been working with the town a lot, as already mentioned. Last year, the rates were increased 15% across all tiers, and the base charge was decreased. Now we're going to get into this a little bit further, but the 11.4% decrease was because the town decided to adopt a methodology to set the service or the base charge every year, and that was based on certain costs. Those costs decrease in the FY26 budget. And you'll see in a few slides what that means for FY27 if the board decides to continue to rely upon that methodology. But that's why there was a dip in FY26 for the base charge, because the methodology was saying that there should be a dip. For the bottom table shows recent results. As you can see that on that surplus deficit line, there's basically been alternating years for how the fund has performed as you compare revenues to expenses. FY21, there was a surplus of about $500,000. Next year, a deficit of about $400,000. And you can see that as you go across. So in general, I'd say in general, if you were to average or put a line to some graph, rates are generally keeping up with expenses. But it's important that there continues to be rate action moving forward, especially to support the capital plan that the town now maintains. Next slide, please. So this is the first slide as we're doing the review for what the rate plan was last year. What we did was we updated our analysis to look 1 year further into the future. So the new 5-year look starts with FY27 and it ends with FY31. What we did was we applied that 9% per year rate change to our analysis, and this is what it was saying. You may recall last year that our goal was to see if we can get that blue line in the graph, which is projected retained earnings, to approximate or be close to that orange line, which is the target for retained earnings. The target in this case is 20% of expenses. That's a metric or a standard that we've used in our analyses for each of the last several years. That has not changed. So last year,
Could I ask a quick question?
you may, sure.
So, I see this line, retained earnings. What is in total expenditures? Is that everything, water, and capital?
Everything's in there. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. It's all operating expenses. It's all capital expenses. We take 20% of that,
Okay,
and
so
that's the
it's
target.
effectively the cash spent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but these are also projections looking forward. So this is, these are budgeted expenses in the future years, as well as what we anticipate happening related to capital expenses based on the capital plan.
All right, but you're essentially treating all capital expenditures as effectively cash expenses.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Al, by that, are you meant to getting into like whether it's things are borrowed, capital's borrowed or not, or?
No,
It's the actual, you're right. It's the cash spent, whether it's debt service or whether it's something bought
Okay.
outright. It's the cash truly spent during the year
Yeah.
for.
it's
the-
cash accounting.
Yeah.
Okay, just, I'm trying to understand because. Yep, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you, Matt. Keep going.
No, no problem. I don't mind questions at all. So please feel free to ask as we move along. I've been doing a lot of talking so far, so that was a good break. Okay, so back to this graph. So the graph last year showed that the blue was trending or was approximating that orange line. This year, with all the updated numbers, you're seeing that now it's trending a little bit below that line. So in other words, the picture has changed. And we're going to get into that a little bit more as we move forward here. So let me move to the next slide so we can talk a little bit more about that. All right, so what's changed? FY20, so we're in 26. Yep. FY26 has proven to be a very strong revenue year. As you think back to last summer, it was a very dry season. There must have been a decent amount of outdoor water usage because usage and revenues were way up for FY26. So that means that the next fiscal year is when you see that from an MWRA assessment standpoint. We included in our analysis that based on the latest data we have from the MWRA, because we didn't have the preliminary assessment information yet from them. We did a projection for what we thought the assessment was going to be, and we just learned today, over the last few hours, that the projection was close to what the preliminary assessment amount is. So the reason why I'm mentioning that is simply that there's no big change to what we had projected. Everything works fine with what we did there in our analysis. We also want to mention quickly that there is an agreement between the MWRA and the town of Southborough. You can see that in the second bullet here, that allows the town to use 300,000 gallons of water per day without being charged for that usage. That agreement expires this year. Now, we have seen, because we looked at the agreement recently, it goes back many years. What that means is it seems that the town and the MWRA have continued to carry that agreement forward. Once it expires, then it's renewed. So we would expect that renewal will happen again, but we just wanted to put that on the select board's radar because all of our projections in here assume that agreement will continue. If that
Matt,
agreement, yes.
I don't remember ever seeing this paragraph in your report. Is that because I don't remember, which is certainly possible?
No,
Or
I don't think we've brought that up
expired this year,
before.
That's why you put it on. It's always been in there?
No, we've never really talked about it because it's just been kind of an assumption that's baked into our analysis. We always do discount it, those 300,000 gallons, because that's what happens with the assessment every year. The only reason we're pointing out is because it's important that the town continues to have that agreement in place.
How many gallons
And-
do we use a day?
Bill, do you have that number?
Off the top of my head, I'd say we're in the order of 1 million gallons a day over the summer months.
Why would MWRA give us $300,000 a day? What do they do
It-
that with other towns?
It has to do with some benefit that the town was providing to the MWRA back when this agreement was first put in place. And we're talking like 50 or so years ago, Bill, isn't that correct?
Yeah, it's my understanding that because we had the two main lines that cross through town, that this was sort of a consideration for that inconvenience, if you will.
So we in essence get a third of our water free?
We do have this built into our billing structure, correct, through the agreement.
I would think that our water then would cost less than other towns. I don't think that's the case though, right? Third's a lot.
No, I guess you could say that because if you didn't have this agreement in place, you'd be paying for that extra 300,000 gallons of water per day.
What has the term been for the agreement to this point?
I believe it's 20 years. Bill, do you remember that off the top of your head?
I believe it's 20 years. That's correct.
And what's the precedent for this being renewed at this point? Like, is it expected? Or is it?
It is a rolling agreement. It is expected. I did reach out to the MWRA. They said that they would reach out to us 6 months prior to the expiration and get the ball rolling on revising this agreement.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously it's important that agreement moves forward. And also, I did want to mention that all of our projections in here are based on that agreement continuing. So if it did not, then your assessments would be higher than what we're presenting to you this evening.
I don't want to beat this one to death, but I just didn't know this. And to me, this is a lot of money. So when you get the bill, do you see a big credit for the $300,000 a day?
No. So what happens is every year the MWRA calculates what each member's assessment is.
Yeah.
And then the MWRA bills the members on a monthly basis. It's actually not every month of the year. It's billed 11 months of the year. So they take that assessment, they divide it by 11 and they bill it 11 times. So that assessment would be higher if this agreement wasn't in place. So you would be billed higher every 11 times a year.
Do other, sorry, just for, do other communities that have the MWRA going through them, do they have a similar arrangement that you know of?
So I do a decent amount of work with MWA communities. It's somewhere between 5 and 10 communities that I work with. I don't recall another agreement like this with them.
Okay, so my last question is, do we know for a fact we're truly getting credit for this when they do the
Yeah.
assessments? Okay, so we know that they haven't forgotten this, right?
Correct. Yep. So when I did the projections this year, I did a calculation by backing out that 300,000 gallons per day, projected what I thought the assessment would be, and the assessment came in about $3,000 higher than that. So, yes, it's been determined that this is happening on an annual basis. Okay, can we move on? Oh, no, sorry. Can you go back to the prior slide? So down at the bottom, so what else has changed besides the MWA assessment generally being higher than what we're used to seeing because of the high water usage for FY27? The bottom section talks about the capital plan, and Bill alluded to this a little bit in his opening comments. So when we project costs related to the capital plan in our analysis, we put the capital pieces in 2 buckets. It's either capital projects to be borrowed or capital items, like sometimes a truck is borrowed, for example. Any capital to be borrowed is in one bucket, and then the other bucket is what we call capital outlay, which are items or projects to be funded out of retained earnings. So the capital outlay bucket increased by about $400,000 over the next 4 years from what we were carrying in last year's study. So again, if we think back to that graph and how the projections were showing below the line, this is one reason why. The capital plan has grown a little bit as noted here. Also, the smart meter system was not part of last year's study. It's included in this year's study. And the one other thing that we noticed related to capital was that in last year's study, we had the first debt payment related to the borrowing for the water loop at Presidential to start in FY28, and it actually has started in FY27. So essentially that debt moved up 1 year, and that was another change from our analysis last year.
400K is a cumulative number. It's not a per year number.
That's correct. Okay, okay, we're moving on. All right, so this slide is just a breakdown of what is in the capital plan that we have also included in our analysis. Okay, anything that has that asterisk, like that loop at Fisher Presidential, is to be funded using the 0% interest MWRA loans that are available to the town and are very beneficial if the town is able to take advantage of it. So currently the town already has that, I believe already has that borrowing in place for the loop at Presidential. And also the plan is if the smart meter implementation is to happen, that would also be funded using this 0% interest loan. You can see that in the FY28 area, that $1.5 million tied to the smart meter implementation. So of these, you can see that for the most part, the amounts aren't huge amounts other than the loop at Presidential, the smart meter implementation, the Tara tank completion of painting is 700,000. Everything else is 225 or less. Any questions on this slide? I'll just pause so you can kind of go through.
Going to come back with a recommendation on the smart meters or not? Is that how we left that?
Yeah, I've been back and forth with Bill. I've been out of pocket last week, but I will meet with him in the next week. I think I was, as I think you know, because I sent out a note, the existing smart meters actually have an additional feature, and they're not just meters, they also have the ability to listen to the pipes, and apparently they can hear the gurgling of leaks. Is that an accurate description, Bill?
That's fair. The other part of that has not been discussed, and this is the reason we need to take a look at it over FY 27. We have a system in place currently that's probably 25 years old, and I just received an email today from Census asking for this information, but our current infrastructure is becoming obsolete in the next 2 years. So if we don't do something like smart meters, we will have a capital expense, not quite to that magnitude. It might be 400 to 600,000 to basically upgrade the equipment that's in the field currently.
The good news is that Melrose apparently has implemented something like this so that it would be relatively easy to knock on their door and find out what their experience is.
And we're gonna, from a financial standpoint, we're gonna get into this, the impact of the smart meters on subsequent slides as we move forward here. Okay, so here's the slide on the base charge. We already talked about for FY 26 how it decreased by 11.4%. So now the impact on FY 27. So let's just kind of take a step back real quick though to talk about how this came to be, how this methodology came to be. And that's in the top left of the slide. So for FY 24, that must have been the first year that we did this, the town updated its base charge too, and we identified specific fixed costs that the water department has annually. Salaries, but not including overtime, were included, and indirect costs were included as well. Those were the costs that were identified annually to be recovered by the base charge. Then we used the American Water Works Association supported equivalent meters methodology to determine what the base charges were for different meter sizes. Okay. So this was the methodology that was adopted at the time. And ever since it was adopted, we have continued to, and the town has decided to continue to use that same exact methodology, include the same costs every year based on the latest budget, and then do the same calculations to see what the base charge should be. So if the town were to continue to do that, this would be the 4th year using that same methodology. Now, using that same methodology for FY 27 would be an increase of 12.6%. You can see that at the very bottom of this slide, mainly due to pensions and OPEB normalizing after the 1-year DOR best practice adjustment. So that refers to what happened in FY 26 when it decreased by 11.4%. It was a 1-year DOR best practice adjustment, and now it has normalized, so it's going back up about 12.6%. The table on the right is, again, if the town were to continue to use this methodology, then we are proposing the base charges in the rightmost column for FY 27. And you can see what they currently are in the FY 26 column.
Hey, Brian, before we go on to OPEB, so the Water Enterprise Fund also makes a contribution to OPEB? This is beyond what the town does on the town side?
Contributes to offset where $50,000 is back, and then you get
A piece of that 250 back. Well, I'm just surprised that I didn't think it'd be big. That 12.6 sounds like a lot of an increase due to that and pension.
I think that, but it sounds like it's related to the fact that in the prior year, we decreased the base charge by almost the same amount. And I don't completely understand this, but it seems like they offset each other. We're almost going back to what the base charge was before we had the 11% reduction.
Yeah, but aren't we really just talking about the intra-department charge we have between the town and, right? That's what we're talking about. That's what's increasing here, right? Okay. Sorry, Matt.
No, it's fine. No problem. So again, this is if the town were to continue to use the methodology, those are the proposed base charges in that rightmost column for FY 27. Okay, I think we can move to the next slide. All right, so recommended option. We're currently focused on this rate plan. Again, we started our discussions related to rates focused on what we were carrying last year at this time. So again, when the select board made the decision to set rates for FY 26, the select board did so knowing that we were showing a 9% increase in FY 27. And we were also showing 9% in the subsequent years. Well, because of those changes that I had covered on the previous slide, that 9% has now become 10%, as you can see here, for the subsequent years. So the updated graph is down there at the bottom. And you can see that we do have the blue line trending towards the orange line with the rate plan that's shown at the top of the screen here. And we also in that bottom table are showing what we think the impact would be on certain users, what the impact would be to the bill for certain users. And we tend to focus on the average residential, which is kind of in the middle of that table. Current bill, these are quarterly amounts. About $156 per bill would go up to about $172 per bill. So that's a 16-ish dollar increase per bill with the proposed rates here for FY 27. And that would include that 12.6% increase in the base charge, as you can see, plus a 9% increase to rates across all tiers.
There's 2 out of 5 here, Matt, on the select board that don't have water. We've got wells. Remind me how many bills we send a year, Bill? 3?
For
4?
quarterly.
So if you look at fiscal year 27 average, a person's going to pay 172 times 4.
That's correct. And when I met with town staff, it was mentioned that there was some curiosity from the select board on what things would look like if the smart meters were not to be funded. So we basically ran the exact same analysis and just excluded the funding of the smart meters, that $1.5 million, which because of the plan to use the 0% MWRA loan turned out to be $150,000 per year over 10 years. We just took that $150 per year out and put together the same exact slide. And that's what you see here in front of you. So the only real change from a rate plan standpoint is just those subsequent years to FY 27. We kept the 9% for FY 27 again, because that's what was included. That's what was part of the plan last year. And we changed the subsequent years. They were 10% on the prior slide. Now they're 8% without that 150 per year.
You said something a minute ago I didn't understand. Did you say you replace the 150 with Bill's lower number as far as what would be needed if we didn't do smart meters or not?
No,
Oh.
Kathy, at the time, I didn't have that information about the equipment becoming obsolete. I literally just found that out the other day, and so we started looking at it.
All right, so realistically, these numbers are a little bit understated as far as without the smart meters, right?
That's
Because you're
what it
gonna have-
seems,
you're
Bill.
gonna
just-
replace
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Can
Right,
you
so-
remind us, Matt, of the tiers, what the cutoff is, 1,000, 25, 45, 10, whatever it is?
Yeah. One sec, please. I'm sorry. I gotta find it. Okay, tier 1 breaks at 1,000 cubic feet. Tier 2 breaks at 2,500 cubic feet. So tier 2 goes from 1,000 to 2,500. Tier 3 breaks at 5,000 cubic feet. So that's 2,500 to 5,000. And tier 4 is anything above that. Anything above 5,000. So based on what we have calculated as the average residential user, you can see it on the slide. That's 2,600 cubic feet. That means that user would be in tier 3, but barely in tier 3.
And the marginal cost of each tier is more as you move up, correct?
Yes, the rate per tier increases as you move up. So current rates are $2.38 for tier 1, and it's $5.58 for tier 2, $8.77 for tier 3, and $12.80 for tier 4.
And those rates you just gave us reflect the 9% increase or don't?
No, those are the current rates. So if the 9% were to be adopted, you would increase each of those rates by 9% to get the FY27 rates. I can give you those numbers if that's helpful.
No, that's okay. I can do that.
Matt, could you just go, right now you're at the slide at the end. Could you
Yep.
just go back to the slide or the recommended option?
The one with the smart meters
With the
included?
Smart meters, yeah.
Okay, so one slide prior. Yep, this one.
Okay, so that's showing that the recommendation is to continue to have the 9% rate change in this fiscal year, and then have it 10% in the next year, although we just make that decision on a year-to-year basis, right?
Yeah, yes, that's what has historically happened. But what we like to do is we like to show you what the future years look like as you make the decision for the current fiscal year. So if you were to adopt what we have here, which would be the 12.6% base charge increase, as well as the 9% rate change increase, based on all of the current assumptions that we have in our analysis, we think that you'd be looking at a 10% next year. But that decision would be made this time next year. That would not be made now.
All right.
So if these projections are on point, Brian, isn't this gonna make Carla nervous when she sees 4.5% retained earnings for fiscal year 28? And 7.6, I know it's going back up in 31 projections, but I would think this would make her quite nervous and possibly the auditors quite nervous.
It's not ideal, for sure. But that's a few years down the road. And also we do have some conservatism built into here, because what we do is we assume that the town fully spends its budget, and that historically does not happen. So that would mean if the town were to continue to not spend its budget every year, that creates additional turnbacks that would then be added to retain earnings above and beyond what you see here.
Is this factoring in the lost water as well? The amount of money that we're spending on the water that's not there? So if we would fix some leaks, theoretically, that would close this gap?
It's based on what you currently have in your budget plus what you currently have in your capital plan. But in theory, yes. If there were measures taken to improve on that, you presumably would see better financial results for that reason.
So this is Andrew, just as a point of reference, I mean, Kathy, to your question, I went back and looked at the same presentation that was made last year. Just because I looked at this, my first reaction was, wow, we supported 9%, increase to the rate. It's obviously high. But then I looked back at the presentation from last year in the minutes. We did in fact, agree that this was the plan. There was a huge increase in the base charge rate, I think, 1 year. And then we targeted, or we had the base charge or the rate change, I think 1 year was that we had a 15% increase and then had 9% increases over there. But that before these, in the year before that, we had included rate increases of 3%. And there, the retained earnings projections were very bad. The graph showed them going down out into the out year of fiscal year 30, negative 66.8% retained earnings. So I guess what you're kind of recommending that we do is just kind of stay the course of what we agreed to do last year.
Yeah, I guess that's one way to say it. I mean, by no means does this have to be the plan that's voted. But we thought that because the 9% that was shown last year continued to show that the staying of the course that you just mentioned a moment ago, we thought presenting that made sense. But that does not mean that that has to be what's voted.
You'd just say that if we reduced it, then you're gonna have to look to, we'd need to make up for it in subsequent years in order to keep a projection of trying to get retained earnings back to the 20% target by like fiscal year 2031.
That's another good way to put it. Yes, if you in theory do less now, then you would need to do more later.
So basically of the two recommendations, the with or without smart meters doesn't really matter that much to your recommendation for
Well,
fiscal
this
year
year, Dan,
27.
because smart meters are next year.
Yeah, it's just the $70,000 study this year and then. One other thing to consider is, and I'm looking at the minutes of the last meeting, a couple of people from the public commented they like the idea of the smart meters, the idea you get an app on your phone that shows you how much water you're using. I know that in the last summer I had one bill that I got and I was like, wow. And that was just because I was using my irrigation system a lot. So if I had that app, I might have adjusted some of my behavior. Okay. I know we've just been kind of talking, and asking.
Let me just ask one
Yeah,
more
sure.
that Tim just asked and make sure that we heard this right. So Mr. Fling just talked about the impact of finding our leaks, right? So instead of losing 20%, we'll lose 10%, right? So we obviously are paying for that lost water, but we're also passing on the cost of lost water to residents, right? They're really paying for it because we're passing on all the costs to make this work. So it would save the ratepayer money if we could fix these leaks, right, Bill?
That is correct, Kathy. And we do hire a leak detection company annually to locate these leaks, and we have a consistent pattern of being over 20% of what we call unaccounted water. That's water that we're paying for, but we're not billing for. So we're over 20% on that. My understanding industry norm is about 10%. So there's 10% of water that we can potentially locate by implementing other methods to detect leaks.
So if I recall your prior presentation, there's, if we were to go from the 20 to the 10, it's on the order of $50,000 a year. Does that sound right?
That's on the low end. I believe that was the conservative end.
Okay.
Al?
It's a six-figure, it's a five-figure number, not a six-figure number in terms of what's available to save. So there's,
That's not as big as I thought.
no, I think it's not, my comment here, and I'm probably, and in fact, I'm almost certain I'm beating my head against a block of concrete, is that the way we're accounting for this is nuts. The fact that we, expense a dump truck is nuts. I mean, no private sector company with an honest set of accountants would ever do that. You practice accrual accounting and you depreciate. So what we're really doing is, again, I know I'm beating my
No,
head.
you're not. I mean, you're right about accounting. If you're really doing a financial statement, but in this case, this is more of a cash flow. You still got to have money to pay for that dump truck, unless you finance it.
Well, yes, you would finance it. And But in any event, and we are certainly, it looks like we have a very substantial capital plan for 27 and 28. The 27 plan looks like it's $300,000 before you get to the Fisher Presidential Loop. And I think the fiscal 28 is similar, which is, roughly 10%. The thing that, and I don't have a dog in this fight. I've got a well, and I'm very happy. I'm really glad I do. Is that the optics of, just endless 9 and 10% increases is not very complimentary in the way we run our operation. That we have, this is, we're not adding or expanding. And, maybe we've underinvested for a long time, but, the idea that we simply have to continue sort of an endless series of 10% tax rate increases is, I'd be recommending to people to go hire well drillers. At some point, you do have competition.
Bill, do we have any watering bans that you remember for the summers?
Not that we actively implemented. We do have standing bans and water conservation principles that are employed. We don't actively put out signage that say it's a drought statewide, be conscientious, like some other towns do. So to answer your question, I would say we've not actively done that.
Do you think if the $1,500,000 for the smart meter implementation, do you think if that were explained to the voters at town meeting that they would support it? Because I remember what Kristen Lavalde said and how happy she was when someone found the leak that she had. And I think a lot of people would feel that way.
So I'm, believe it or not, a lot like Al. I'm a numbers guy. If it passes muster and we can, take the next year to evaluate whether or not it makes sense, then we'll have our answer on my recommendation. But right now it's too premature. For example, I learned today, like I said, our current vendor of our equipment is telling me that we're going to be between $400,000 and $600,000 in capital expenses in 2 years for new equipment because they will no longer support their old equipment. So, that's one of the items that we have to think about as we move forward. And maybe we take the minimalist approach, which is fine, but I think we have to consider the options that are available to us at this point. And if it makes financial sense to do so, then, that'll come out of the analysis.
Thank you.
Bill, you and I caught up a little bit about the hydrant meters, but I don't see that on the current plan. Did you have any further update on the hydrant thought process?
I think that's something, again, that after we talk to our consultant, PAR, in this case, we would consider those, and then they would make a recommendation as a result of that evaluation.
So the smaller number that you and I talked about, you'd still wait for a larger recommendation before even considering that for this current fiscal year?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Andrew, I was going to do this during members' report, but it's pretty relevant now, so I can update on where we are with Hopkinton, because we actually,
Okay,
there's news,
yeah.
there's news, and Bill knows this. So surprisingly to most that have been involved in the Hopkinton connection to the MWRA, Hopkinton is charging forward with the work that has to be done to make this happen. They are now 75% designed. The intent was that Southborough would hire an auditor to monitor that design all the way through, so that if we didn't like the design, they would be able to change it in real time and not have to start all over. Well, Hopkins has charged ahead without the IMA. They seem gung-ho about still wanting to do this. In that agreement that got put down, 95% done, there is $1 million that we can spend pretty much if you want to, as long as it's on water. Plus, they do a lot of the upgrades. Bill, is the Terra tank part of what they were going to have to do?
I was not planning on the Terra tank being part of what they planned to do. I was looking at Lover's Lane. Now, if there was
I
conversation
agree. I'm
prior,
not talking about the million. I'm talking about they were supposed to do all the upgrades that we needed to the system itself. And I think Terra's part of that. So that might be paid too. So anyway, it looks like things are coming back on track. We were going to close out that $200,000 at this town meeting. They've asked us not to do it. Interestingly, Jay Tellerman is now their town council also. So that's a new fact. So he's gotten involved and I said, okay, we won't do it now, but we may do it in the fall. He said, fair enough, if they don't get going here. So I do expect that we're not going to sit around looking at each other anymore like we have the last few meetings, and that if they come back, that we really will hopefully get this IMA done. So anyway, that Bill knows all this. He was part of.
Well, but the only
Conversations.
way of, like, I think of that impacts the decisions we're making now are, I thought the Fisher presidential connection was part of the work that. And that.
We had, but we can change it. So you're right, it does not affect what we're doing tonight. It just might help us going forward as far as the 10%, the 10%, the 10%.
Yeah, okay, so just a final question I had, to Al's point, I also, looked at that and thought, wow, that's a long sustained increase to have of increases of 9%, 10%. And then I look back and, that's what the recommendation was last year. We voted
Yeah.
for it. Is that related to the, you look at the capital plan and we're making investments in FY 27 and FY 28. And then like FY 29 in the capital plan, there's just $35,000. And then there's not that much. Is this related to we're building up reserves, retained earnings so we can help finance the debt to make these investments in this year and the next fiscal year? Or am I not understanding that right?
so the MWRA loans are 0% 10-year loans. So we will be making payments, even though it's not shown on the capital plan.
Yep.
There will be obligations towards those capital expenses over those years. So, I wanted to get some of these capital items are regulatory, some are better service oriented. So the idea was to get some of these rolling and then service the debt over the number of years out.
Just a simple suggestion going forward. When you show the expenses, why don't we show the operating expenses, which is water and labor and the likes, show the debt service and the capital items that are going to hit, on a 1-year basis, rather than lumping it all into expenditures, because it's, as I say, it's kind of goofy accounting.
Okay, yeah, I'll make a note on that for future years. But to the question was just asked about future years. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe the question was tied to trying to understand if that number for those future years, like FY 29, for example,
Yep.
which is showing as a really low total right now,
Yep.
if that would be a greater amount in future years. Bill, can you comment on that a little bit? So I think to the point is that if we go back to that capital slide, I'm not saying change it, but I'm not saying show that slide, but the capital slide had a lot in FY 27, had a lot in FY 28, only had a little in FY 29, only had a little in FY 30. So Bill, would you expect that FY 29, FY 30 would grow in size in terms of what would be expended for capital in those years?
I currently don't have any expectation to do that. We did spend some time with our consultant developing a capital improvement plan this year, and we did not have anything identified for those few years that are out that far. No.
Okay, so it's possible then that's what the capital investment would be in those years. And if that's the case, then what you're looking at on the slide right now includes everything. So these are our projections tied to what's currently in the capital plan. If the capital plan were to grow, then yes, in theory, you would need more revenue to cover that. But this is where we are based on the latest capital plan.
So there is a little bit of disconnect here. I agree, Andrew. This looks, so since those sorry, guys. Since those outlier years don't have a lot of new capital, they will pick up the debt service from presidential and tariff, whatever. It does seem a little illogical that those outlier years would go up 10%, except that you are rebuilding the retained earnings. So maybe that's what we're missing. We're starting to rebuild the retained earnings those last 2 years.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Kathy. You can see that in large part because of the large capital expenses in the plan over the next few years, that blue line goes downward on the graph.
Yeah.
And then the subsequent years, you can see it start to build back up. So yes, it's really the replenishment of the retained earnings that's happening in those outlying years. Maybe in part because the capital plan isn't as there aren't as many capital expenses in those outlying years as there are in the next few years. And also just a quick point, the debt service that has been mentioned a few times now, tied to presidential, tied to the smart meters, that is in our analysis. So we've already assumed those expenses in what you're looking at here.
What's the risk with punting the presidential loop at this point to reduce the 150 per year? I know that it's efficiency, but is there a risk of anything going down by punting that project?
Are you referring to the smart meters or the presidential loop?
The presidential loop.
So the presidential loop has already been borrowed, I believe. So
No,
That's-
presidential loop has not been borrowed yet. That would be next year. The borrowing that we currently have is for the Linwood pipelining. So the idea there, that has been on the capital plan as well as on the water master plan since 2022, I believe, to have that water main looped. So Tim, for your benefit, usually when you have two nearby and adjacent water mains, you loop them to get better flow and better pressure, overall better service. Certainly water quality improves when you have a looping. So there's a short distance between Fisher Road and Presidential. The major obstruction is there's a railroad in between. So that's where the cost in that project lies. But certainly if the board doesn't want to proceed with that project, that's certainly up to you. I'm just following through what's been on the books for a number of years.
Yeah, I mean, my general thought right now is 9% seems absurdly high as a year-on-year agreement, and I wasn't around for that particular thing, but maybe it made sense. But I mean, I'd like to see us push it back as whatever we can. So if we take that one project off, even at 0%, 150 grand a year in debt service on that starts to change some of these numbers pretty drastically. I don't know if that 0% is something that we could get in future years, but if this project would move forward the way that we think everything could, maybe it comes back up in a future year. And we just carry it forward a couple more years, but that's my general thoughts on that today. I still would like to see, Bill and I talked about maybe like 10 to 15 grand in fire hydrants being able to be monitored right away that we could move around. I don't know why we wouldn't do it sooner. I'd like to see that on the capital plan, on the 27 capital plan. I'd like to just get that going, see what we can do to find some of these leaks earlier. It doesn't seem like a giant hill to climb to do that. They seem like they go on with 3 screws or 4 screws, and we start to collect data to find leaks, and we deploy it selectively where we need to get about 40 of them. And we'd be able to do areas that we know that we have leaks in. Because we have, Bill and I talked about it, we have some ideas where they might be to start. This would help pinpoint it. So, and then do the math. Does it make sense to dig up the road? Does it not? Does it save us money, or is it too expensive to dig up the road for what we find? I think that's a much better place to start on some of these things. And it's like 15 grand on this would add 15 grand to this number.
We met to approve his capital plan and approved the Fisher, pivotal loop, so I'm not gonna change my mind on that. Capital recommended it, and we voted on it. Hydrants, I think that's a, one to talk about. Bill, what do you want us to do?
Well, it's at the board's convenience. Certainly, we are under a tight time frame because billing is going to go out shortly and the new bills would reflect the new rates. If the board chooses to, postpone a vote on this, then we could revisit those issues that Tim mentioned, and do another scenario. My recommendation is to maintain the course that we're on with regard to the capital. These numbers are not new. These are numbers we discussed last year and the year prior. So it's as someone said earlier, it's either you implement this painful period for a spread over period of time, or you have a significant increase at a later point in time. If you could go back a few slides, Vanessa. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Yeah, right there. Yeah, so this is a slide. So FY21, you'll see a 17% increase. And then even in FY25, that base charge was 24%. Those are the things we're trying to avoid, because those are significant bumps. And we try to make the rate adjustments overall smooth and not as significant in a short period of time. So while it may be painful, the idea is to get some capital projects done. Some of these projects are driven by the DEP, and then we get back to our retained earnings, and then we'll have a more reasonable rate. But
So Bill, if we don't approve this tonight, if we delay it, then that means you'll bunch the increase over 3 bills instead of 4?
correct.
How we have 5 years right now where we have a 10% rate change. And I don't know what goes on beyond that. So when do we get back to a lower number?
Well, as Matt, sorry.
I was gonna say, like, looking at the FY plan from that slide that we're on right now, of these 3.5, 7.5, 3.25, like when is it projected that we get back to a number of a more sustainable path?
Well, we always present the 5-year rate plan. So if we were to go back to that recommended rate option slide, you'll see that at the end of the 5-year period, we have the projected retained earnings approximating the target. So it's all based on current assumptions. But based on current assumptions, we think after those 5 years, you should be at, we'll call smaller increases or.
Oh, yeah, 9% is a lot, but if you look at the average ratepayer, right, they're paying 172 a quarter, so that's what, 680 or so a year. So you're talking $60 a year is what the impact on the average user is. And I'm not saying $68 is not a lot of money, but it doesn't compare to your real estate tax bill, I guess is the point I want to make.
I don't think you have.
Vanessa, could you go to the last slide for a second, please? Okay, this slide is, granted, it's a reflection of last year's numbers. It is data that's provided by MWRA for all their communities. This is a reflection of just the water billing for a 120, 100 cubic feet of water over the course of a year for a customer. So you'll see where Southborough lies. We're smack dab in the middle of the pack. And our goal is to stay roughly in that space.
But Bill, this is with that 300,000 gallons a day number included. And we're
Correct.
still smack in the middle with a major supplement to the system.
That's correct.
So, I mean, we should really be in the lower side of this chart if we have if we're one of the only towns of 5 to 10 that, we know about that have this.
There are other communities. I've been looking at that list as well. Let me make sure I understand this correctly. This chart shows the water billing only, so it doesn't include the capital or the maintenance portions of the bill. Is that correct?
No, this is the cumulative, my understanding is this is the cumulative bill for each community.
It is. I always look at our number. See my 760, there it is,
Yeah.
right there. So this is the bill that includes all your.
All of the
Yep.
services.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
there's-
Al, what they do is they send out a survey so
Okay,
that,
no,
yeah.
I get it. I misunderstood. I mean, you look at this and there are other communities here that that the MWRA has significant impacts on. I believe there's some big pipes that run through Revere, for example. I don't know about how Burlington is so
I
inexpensive,
don't either.
but maybe we ought to ask them.
They got a lot of office buildings.
Okay, so do we feel like we've had enough discussion? We want to take a vote?
Yes.
One more point too, as far as what she just said about buildings. Remember, this is a very tiered structure. We really are penalizing those that use the most, right? That's why I see the marginal rate. So we're doing that. So those that are conservative and economical pay far less than their neighbors that use a lot more. It's not, they lose twice as more, they pay a lot more than 2 times. So we are trying to encourage, are trying to reward those that use less water as far as the
And-
rates go.
To that point, I do have something else to bring up to this. It doesn't affect a lot of people, but multifamily housing and ADUs would probably be something to consider with these rates going forward. Multifamily use, if they have one main, are paying at a higher tier and being penalized for the use of that property at multiple families of use and not being a super user by the definition of where these rate structures were set up. So I've talked to Bill a little bit about it, and I don't know if now's the time or if we could do something later in the year, but I am still curious about a variance opportunity to consider for that. So that way we're not penalizing people that are using this appropriately and not watering a pool or filling a pool or watering their yard, simply having multiple people living in one residence. So that's something I'm still curious about as well.
Maybe at the FY 27 goal setting meeting, that's the type of thing that's good for work on between, like a meeting like this, and this is like a good kind of summer project, you think about how you would implement something like that. Right, we feel like we're ready to,
Yes.
and I'll just say one last thing, as I've listened to the conversation here. I got in front of me the exact same presentation from last year. It is a little bit instructive, showing, in the presentation that Matt made last year, on the slide that said FY 28 rate plan. So it said, this was showing in the prior year, so 2 years ago, the plan we adopted was to have rate increases of 3% annually. And then the retained earnings percentage in these years was negative. Now, I don't really, if you could explain to me a little bit what that means, like a negative retained earnings percentage. It's
Well, it means you're
You're-
bankrupt. So you
Yeah.
have no money to pay your bills.
so yeah, so there that was the path of by FY 30 being if you kept rates to 3%, you'd have retained earnings at negative 66.8%.
So you're out of business.
So that's
Yeah.
where you just have deficit after deficit after deficit.
In other words, 3% was not enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
In
you
other-
couldn't operate an enterprise fund like that, right?
No,
That's-
no, you
Okay,
literally have no money to pay your bills.
all right, so with that, either way, with the smart meters or not, right, the recommendation is 12.6% base charge increase and 9% rate increase. So I move that we adopt that recommendation, the 12.6% base charge increase for FY 27 and the 9% rate change for FY 27.
Second.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
What about the fire hydrant monitoring? Because that's not included in the capital plan currently.
You're saying this is something that's like a relatively smaller investment that you want to put on the capital plan for the next year?
Well, from my understanding, and I could be missing a piece of information, but I don't know how much I'd be missing. but the meter for a fire hydrant is around $260, Bill, it was $260 a meter, I believe.
Yeah, for the device itself, so let me give a little background if you don't mind, Tim. These are leak detection devices. They do a sounding of the system in the local vicinity where you put it on a hydrant, and it will tell you if there is a suspect leak in that vicinity. Now, while these are relatively inexpensive, the maintenance level or monitoring level is where the expense comes in, and which is why I need to talk to a consultant about this. There is a level of effort for the monitoring that's associated with this that would be required. It's not automated like some of these other devices that would call our office and say, hey, you have a leak over here. It's something we have to actively go out and monitor periodically to collect the data. So you have staff time that's dedicated to this. I'm not saying it's not something we don't want to do. I'm saying let's think about it before we actually hastily go off and start pursuing that.
Yeah, so to that point, my understanding is, like Bill said, you put it on the hydrant. Somebody goes around with the RF device to collect the data, compile it, and then decide whether or not there's a leak or something to pursue, and we collect it over time. You'd buy, give or take, 35, 40 of these, and you deploy them for somewhere around $10,000 to $15,000, barring the cost of labor and that pipe.
All right, I just don't think this affects the decision we've got right in front of us, right? So we got a motion that's made and seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right.
Did you oppose?
No, I voted in favor.
I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't work with Bill to do this, but Bill, remember too, we looked at that Hopkinton article and they've got a grant to do just
Yes.
this, right?
Yes.
There's a state
Yes.
grant to give you money to audit your water system. So you can go that route too. So these are not mutually exclusive. We set the rates, but it doesn't mean Bill can't take a look at whatever program we think is appropriate to try to find the leaks in this town.
I think we're done on that, right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Matt, thank you for doing this. I know that you've had a little bit discombobulation the last couple of days, so thank you for doing it.
Yes, well, I'm happy at least I could join virtually. Thank you.
Okay. Cheers.
Can you share? Okay. All right. Sometimes enjoyable just switching these topics. They're so different, going from pizza to water race to the Olympics.
The curling, yes.
So under Chair's report, I'm just going to have a brief recognition of Corey Dropkin, a former Southborough resident and 2013 Algonquin graduate who won a silver medal in the Winter Olympics in the sport of, I think it's doubles, mixed doubles curling, right? And just wanted to express on behalf of the town how proud we are to have a Olympic medalist who's from our town. And Peg Leonard, I know, has been in touch with his parents, right? Because she was his former neighbor. Do you have anything else to add to this, or Vanessa's looked into this a little bit?
No, Peg was delighted to share her personal recollections of the family. She's been watching very closely.
All right, in the preview of coming attractions department, our state legislators are going to be here at our next meeting. I think they didn't come the last year, but this will be, it's been a regular thing to come just give an update on how things are going on Beacon Hill. And it's an opportunity for us to talk about some of our, things we're looking for from the municipal perspective. And other update, as I think people probably saw from emails from Jim Hegarty, and it was on mysouthborough.com, I think the Attorney General's office approved the Costco zoning article from the fall 2025 special town meeting. I think that's all I got there for the chair's report. Does anyone else have a member's report? Yeah. Tim?
Got one thing.
Yeah.
Tim, what's
Yeah.
it?
I went to the Dole Men's Club this past week, and I talked with them about the upcoming special town meeting, some really good insightful feedback that I'll share when we get to the right section of this meeting, but about different things that they had confusion about, and clarity, going forward. So when we get to the presentation section, I'll bring up those topics then.
Okay, Kathy?
So I just wanted to, since I don't know if Bill's still listening, to thank our DPW crew for all the work they've done this winter. My gosh. And Marguerite started this meeting saying we got another 20 inches coming, but thank gosh she's wrong. She's wrong. So, but and you too, I mean, my gosh, with what everybody's had to do to get us through this winter. It's not just been a lot of snow, it's been freezing cold on top of it. So these guys stay up all night plowing these roads, all night, all night, all night. And then they've got to, get a couple hours of sleep and go right back to it. We've had two-day school closures, which I don't remember ever having. Andrew, you probably don't, you know more than I do. But
No,
my
this has
gosh.
happened before. but-
So I just want them to know that they are much appreciated. Yes.
Okay, and Jim? Do you want to speak to us about the appointment of the deputy town clerk?
Good evening, Jim Hagerty, Town Clerk. We had 161 people apply for the deputy town clerk position downstairs. We did 15 phone interviews, 8 in person, 3 seconds. And tonight, Amber Smith signed an offer sheet and she'll start on the 16th. So we're looking forward to having work on this. She's a paralegal for a firm up in Sudbury. So nice to have her on board. When I talked to Stephanie, she spent a good part of last week riding on garbage trucks. As her job is basically an area coordinator for a large trash hauling company. I wish her the best. She was wonderful to work with.
All right.
Good news, Jim.
And I met her downstairs earlier, so she's gonna be at the special town meeting on Monday.
Yes, and she asked for copies of the warrants and prior minutes, so she's really digging into this before she starts here. So she'll be with us on next Monday.
I know you're happy.
Yes.
Yep.
Good.
Okay, under the consent agenda, I'm gonna table the executive session minutes for February 3rd because we haven't distributed them yet.
Sorry, Vanessa.
So we'll get to them at the next meeting next week. The open session minutes, I'm gonna hold February 3rd because I got some spelling changes. We probably also have to hold C because we need to actually fill in the names of people to do the office hour slots, so. Do anyone have any changes to the January 24th, 2026 minutes?
I had one Scrivener's, line 45. I think it's push instead of push.
Yes. Your line 45, that should be pass,
Oh, pass.
pass,
Oh, pass the inspection.
pass.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And then I think also line 84 on those same minutes, was it Miss Davis who moved to adjourn advisory or was it Marcy Jones, Miss Jones?
Ms. Jones.
Yeah, it would be,
Ms. Jones
should be
Sala.
Jones.
Yeah.
That's right. Good catch.
So that's it for me.
Any other edits? I move that we approve the January 24 minutes as amended.
Second,
All those in favor? And on the February 3rd minutes, on line 172, spelling dente should be D-E-N-T-E. And vertex on line 186 should be V-E-R-T-E-X. Any other corrections?
no.
No.
I move that we approve the February 3rd open session meeting minutes as amended.
Second,
All those in favor? All right, so we just got to fill out the office hour schedule. Thank you, Marguerite and Kathy, for doing it on the 10th of February. Tim signed up for March 10th and June 9th. I can join you on March 10th. So do we have volunteers for the slots in April and May.
5/12 is the town election.
All right, so then we should probably have a different day there. Should we have it
Or skip it.
yeah, maybe we just skip it.
Let's skip it.
So in that case, I will do, so what's got left, 4/14? I'll do 4/14.
Okay.
I can do it if nobody else wants to.
Al, are you?
Sure.
Okay,
4/14?
yeah. And then,
I'll bring my lame duck suit.
okay. June 9th, I could do it with you again, Tim.
Cool.
All right. Okay, so I think we've gone through the consent agenda. Next up is discussion of the FY 27 budget, which is going to be the main thing on the annual town meeting for April 11th. I know we're so focused on next week's special town meeting, but Kathy, I know that there's been a revision to the rev cap that was in our packet. And Brian, maybe you want to come over here and just help us. I'll just turn it over to you, Kathy, to just, describe your thoughts on where you think we are from our budget summit and the revisions to the rev cap.
So Chief, you're here to talk about your budget, right? If we need you?
Yep.
Okay. So you want me to tee it off, Brian, or you want? Sure.
The one that's been revised.
All right, so this, what you've got in front of you is the latest and greatest. It's hot off the press. So advisory voted last Friday unanimously to support the operating budget that you see here. They're not done voting because, and there was also an error in what they looked at, so they thought they had a positive bottom line, but we don't. We still short 542. So anyway, they voted to support the operating budget that you see. The only hole in the operating budget right now is we're waiting for the Algonquin final number. And Greg Martineau said to me and said to Brian that he does believe it's going to come down to a 5% year-over-year increase. So that's without nudging. So I don't know where he's going to get it, but he does think.
And
we
the
think
number
they're
that's in
voting
there currently is 7.
So we
Okay.
think so that's another almost couple $100,000. I think they're voting on Thursday. Brian thinks maybe that's the case too. So we should hear soon as far as their final budget. So that should help a little bit. In this budget, Brian has put what he believes are the healthcare costs for fiscal year 27 with the 2 plans that would have deductibles in them. So he's had to make a set of assumptions as far as who's going to pick what. So that may have to be refined further, but there is numbers in here that reflect assumptions as far as what choice people will make when they make their choices in June. So that's in here. Couple things to point out as far as what's in here, things that we talked about. One we talked about on the Saturday, one we didn't. So we talked on Saturday about possibly, did you do that?
Yes, I have the microphone on my paper. It's
Removing
awful.
one of the positions that we had approved last year for the police department. Remember, we added 3 staggered during the year. So 2 of them were about to kick in when we had that meeting. They weren't filled because it wasn't time to fill them. And then they had another vacancy where one of the young policewomen went back to her old town because she wasn't able to work the midnight shifts. And do it well. So she went back. So he had 3, but he had, I believe, 40 people who applied for those 3 the last time I talked to Chief. 53? Okay. 161 for Jim, 153 for you. So lots of demand for these positions. So anyway, so we talked about possibly doing that again. You know, we walked in that day with a $2 million potential tax override. Since then, Andrew and I have met with Chief and with Sean McCarthy, Lieutenant McCarthy, and then Howard Rose, who's the advisory rep to police. He has also met with the same 2 separately. So based on Howard's meeting, he went back and talked to advisors last Friday, and they voted 7-0 to keep the positions in the budget as Chief had submitted. Andrew, you can speak for yourself. I also support that position now after meeting with them. They made a really strong case about what would be the impact if we remove something that they had fought so hard to get the previous year. So I'm now in favor of keeping that one in there too. So we should talk about that tonight. Andrew, see where you stand, what you recommend, right?
Yep, I mean, I think, Chief, you made made some good points that I think are worth making here about, what are the impacts of understanding the picture about, specialized positions, advancement, recruitment and retention, and then I think the two people who have been with the force for a number of years, who then, they're going out on a maternity leave, and so the impact that has and the impact of the open positions, right? So I don't know, at some point after Brian talks, maybe you can make,
And so the other one that's budget, operating budget specific, that we did not talk about on Saturday because we didn't have the planning board come in, is advisory is recommending not supporting the significant increase that planning put through for the town planner. It was in the 30% or so. So they have recommended that increase be what the COLA increase is from the SAP. So this budget reflects their vote on that. And that also was a unanimous vote. In fact, Barry Rubenstein was pretty vocal about that when I actually heard that meeting. Tim, you might have been there for that one too. Remember Barry used to be the chair of the personnel board. So the planning board, it's my understanding, went to the personnel board to ask to increase Karina's grade, I think by 2. Is that right, Vanessa?
I think so.
And so pretty big jump, right? Which would then generate a large increase in her salary. Personnel board said, no, we're not going to do these one at a time. We're going to do we're going to do a classification and rate study, hopefully after town meeting. And then at that point, everybody will be considered. And if there is an adjustment that's warranted, it will be recommended at that point. So they would not do that as far as this out of sequence raise. Barry Rubenstein strongly agrees with that approach. He said, we can't just do these one off. It's just not fair. Never getting we got to do it right. We got to have independent study to back this up. So Barry Rubenstein kind of led the discussion at advisory as far as their decision there. So what is in front of you is not what the planning board has asked for, but it is what advisory has voted on, and it's the normal 5% SAP increase for that position. The town planner is on the SAP.
so I'll just say that the new rev cap, I came into this, this afternoon, got here and started to prepare based on the version that was in the packet with it, had us in the black by 75. So this is a big difference of showing us in the red now, when I mean that like override territory. And I just quickly, Kathy, looked at the Algonquin budget and then did a calculation if that goes from 7% to 5%. So that reduces it by like $200,000. So then you're still have a gap of $350,000.
So advisory hasn't looked at, they're not doing capital yet. They're going to wait till after March 2nd, special time meeting, to see where Articles 2 and 3 come out. Because right now, and this is important everybody to understand, the only thing that is coming out of free cash is Article 1, the 175. So if Article 2 and 3 pass, this negative number gets worse by another almost $800,000. So they're waiting to see what happens on Monday before they look at capital. So capital hasn't been voted on by advisory yet. There's some pretty big capital stuff in there. We haven't heard back from the schools yet. So far, NEC has given us 10,000, and that's it. So Andrew Pfaff and I have a meeting with one of the schools on Thursday. So hopefully we're going to get a little help with capital from the private schools, but we're not there yet. So that has to be discussed. So tonight, since advisory has voted on the operating budget, I thought we just talked about operating budget and then anything else anybody wants to talk about, but at least update everybody on that vote. Okay, Brian. Your turn.
She stole my thunder. But I guess I'll stick with the operating budget if the board wants to stick with that tonight. So just some other quick notes, what changed since that Saturday meeting. Some of this is small, but DPW, we did fold the wastewater management study. That was a separate article into the actual budget, the operating budget under contract and services. And then Bill has massaged his budget a little more because, as you know, he's.
I'm sorry, could you go back to what you just said?
There was a
about-
study, a wastewater management study, I believe, for 35,000.
Yeah.
In the old, in at the time, the Saturday meeting was.
Because we
folded
said
the-
we're gonna do it every year, so it's
Yeah,
not,
it
it's
was
not,
more, of a- we
it's
decided
not
it's
a
more of an
one-shot thing.
operating expense than a separate article, so it's in his budget now versus alone.
All right, so that doesn't affect,
It doesn't affect the bottom line.
Okay.
but it
And,
just-
and you really mean stormwater, right? Not wastewater.
I'm sorry.
that's what had me
Sorry,
confused.
stormwater.
I
so
thought
that-
I was gonna correct you.
That and Bill's contract massaged his department number. Just the few small ones. Library obviously updated their budget. They actually voted to reduce it by $4,000 even, based on the discussion that was held on that Saturday meeting. And lastly, this was a little bit bigger than I thought. Assabet's assessment next year went up $141,000. That was really unexpected. I think that's the highest increase since I've been here. 33%, and it's mostly fully directly related to number of students attending. It's nice to have them attend, but they went from 23 students this year to 30 next year, so that's about a 30% increase. So that's 141,000, so you can see that didn't help things either. We just got that last week.
Do those students come out of the Algonquin then? Does that lower the Algonquin numbers
Theoretically, I would say yes.
comparably?
I don't think it's comparable. It's not dollar for dollar.
Not dollar for dollar, no, but,
You'd have to lose a lot of students, I think, before it really would affect the Algonquin budget.
Uh-huh. Right.
but other than that, I think Kathy covered all the operating changes that we had, including the piece that you mentioned, so.
Well, I feel like we're not in the position that, we've got a couple more. The timeline is, we need to sign the warrant for the annual town meeting by March 17th. So right now, we're currently scheduled regular meeting next week, next Tuesday. And then the meeting on the 17th, Tuesday, March 17th.
So you don't think you're gonna do one in between? I'm just asking.
I mean, I know that we've had, how many of those? Quite a few of those. I mean, this is, I think, the situation we put ourselves in where we decide to have a special town meeting so close to
We did, didn't we?
annual town meeting. So I don't think we need to make that decision now. I mean, I have thought that we've signed ourselves up for an office hours on March 10th, which would be the natural date if we were gonna have an in-between meeting. I mean, we may need that to try to, my main view of this, I do not want to have an override this year. I feel like because we know we're having an override FY '28, we cannot have an override in FY '27. So, the question I have is, where is the extra $300,000 gonna come from, right?
So if you're showing 200 for Algonquin, that's 300, whatever, so,
And that may require some, I don't know, maybe another joint meeting with them, because they voted an operating budget that assumed that the operating budget they voted for would be in the black.
they did. Well, they assumed the whole thing was in the black, Andrew, so capital is in this number. But they're just not looking at capital, they just want to see what the vote on Monday is, because that's gonna put us 870 something further in the black, if 2 and 3 are approved, right? So it could be it could be $1.3 million instead of 500 after Monday. So you go to capital for part of it, for sure. Not sure we get $1.3 million, but anyway, so.
Yeah.
Monday is gonna be telling, that's why, when we come back the next night, we will know more as far as what this really looks like,
Okay.
right?
Al, Tim, you have,
Well, I'm going to go on record, excuse me, that a 6.4% tax increase is unacceptable. You should be down no more than 4. And in the situation that we find ourselves in right now, again, if this was a private company, we'd be implementing a hiring freeze, at least for 30 to 60 days. And I think that's something that we should do till we sort out what's going to happen. I mean, I'm going to lobby, if it came in at 6.4, I would be working very hard to cut budgets on the floor of town meeting. It's, I need to remind the board that our principal sources of revenue are regressive and fall more heavily on, in terms of percentage of disposable income, on the most vulnerable people in our community. And even those that are not necessarily vulnerable, but are of modest means. And a 6.4% increase is cruel. And so that would be my recommendation, would be to implement either a 30 or a 60-day hiring freeze, at least for the departments that are under our control.
All right, well, I'll just respond to that. I agree with you. We need to bring this down below 6.4%. And, you know, heading into the meeting where I thought the projected year over year was going to be 5.31, I was thinking of, okay, is there a way that you can try to bring that at least under 5? So it's, you know, if it's in the high 4s, that's, I think, better than 5, I think, you know, but there's, you know, there's some pain that comes with doing that. And that's the hard decision to make. You know, if you're talking about firing freeze, that means, you know, Jim, town clerk, then has no help, right? So.
His is done. She's
Yeah, his
signed.
is done,
She's
I know,
done.
but
Okay.
that would be like the practical impact or something.
Well, no,
Well,
no,
we're talk- we're
we
talking
have
about
no authority
this.
with respect to
We're
the
talking
town
about
clerk.
police, but you're saying 30 to 60 days. What's that going to accomplish?
Well, it's going to make sure that we aren't adding staff when we may end up having to reduce staff.
So
Yeah,
who
I-
would that affect? In fact, Chief Newell, right? You've got 3 open right now,
Mark
What?
and Vanessa.
right?
Yeah,
It would affect Melanie's opposition, that's 4.
Yep.
What else? Council on Aging does still have the program director
They're in
open?
the process of second round interviews.
So is that it? Those are the 5 positions open right now?
I believe DPW.
DPW has something?
I think he
Yeah.
still has something.
Yeah, they probably do
open.
because the signs flashing, so they've got something, right?
Yep.
Well, I think we're just, I don't know what we can accomplish now, other than that we gotta get just on the radar screen. We may be looking to have another meeting on the 10th, right?
Well, I still think we're gonna know more, Andrew, on the 3rd, because we're gonna know what happened at special town meeting.
Yep.
Yeah.
That'll
So
be
what was the
700,000.
difference, the correction difference between, if the operating budget is the same in each of these, why one is 75,000 in the black and another is $542,000 in the
It's
red?
It's actually a little lower than that too. It is a living document, but yeah, it's about 450 right now.
So that number is not correct. It's 450.
It's a little lower than that, yeah.
So how'd you get to 450, Brian?
It was exempt that, because I didn't know about Trotter for sure, and I confirmed that today.
Okay.
Trotter is gonna be proposed as a.
And the, so these
That's about
budgets,
90,000.
these budgets, like, there's a note that on the sidewalks and the roads, to treat those as exempt debt,
Yes.
excluded debt, does that mean they need to be on the ballot? Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Um, And the ballot just needs a majority, not 2/3?
Correct. Ballot means majority.
Okay, so that should probably be explained at town meeting that that's how it all works together. I mean, I think that there's gonna be a lot of support for the sidewalks. And I
And
think,
roads.
yep. Although one point that someone's made, I think, before we lose track of it, there's gonna be more support for the roads if you start to think about telling people right away, here, a list of the roads that are the target roads that would be.
Yeah, the 5-year plan, the
Yeah.
roads for the 5-year plan.
Oh, he's got it.
Well, yeah, most of them.
All right.
So can I weigh in on this?
Yep.
I think we're doing this a little bit weird to how I'd think about it. We're chasing a rev cap when in my mind, we should be chasing a year over year increase, and it's more painful. I know the private sector, I don't know the public sector as well, but in the private sector, you'd start with a hiring freeze or a hiring elimination and then go from there. It's easier to eliminate open positions than filled positions. So I was leaning towards the 2 police officer positions not being part of the FY27 budget. I think maybe fill the one that's open now to get back to a full staffing, because that seemed to be pretty good from the report that we saw. But I would be supportive of starting to pull back hard. We need to. this town can't keep doing this amount of money year over year, and we have spending to do that we have to do on a bunch of projects coming up. So I would like to, look at the year over year increase at a more sustainable number and really push hard back and every open position pull back on. I mean, if we get the layoffs, I don't want to, but my family's going through it right now. This is not a comfortable conversation. We have to do this for the taxpayers of this town. We have to look at this in a more aggressive manner. And if it means going back to every one of these budgets that has something and say you got to pull off 5%, or not 5%, sorry, 0.5% from your number, I am okay with going back and saying to all the department heads, pull back this percentage across the rest of it to get us to go down.
Yeah.
I think we have to push back and we have to say, come back to us.
The town meeting voted for those police positions, though. I mean, the taxpayers want those positions.
I believe the vote was unanimous for those positions. I don't think one person voted against that. So we say we have to do this. Well, we don't have to do it. We have to try to do what the town wants us to do here and try to figure out what that is, although it's not easy. But Tim, we're just as focused on the year over year as we are the override. It's just the override's got to be voted on. So it's another vote that has to take place. So I still
Chief,
say,
do you want to speak to the police staffing issue or? Yeah, yeah.
You never know.
You've had a busy several days, so. And you were busy on Friday with unfortunate things too as well when we were gonna try to get together.
Yeah, we've been very busy. The storm really took a lot out of our officers who've just been going around the clock, some working double.
I don't know if you heard Chief Newell was quoted briefly on Channel 5 News.
They had asked if.
I came home late from work and my wife said, Chief Newell was on the news, like the 10 o'clock news.
That's either good or bad.
No, it was good.
No, it was good. It was about the storm.
It's your 15 minutes of fame?
Yeah. Well, they had reached out to see if any local chiefs wanted to speak about the storm and storm preparations, like throughout the state. So figured, why not? I'll leave my comfort zone and give it a shot, But yeah, so to speak to this, to be honest, this is probably the first time the officers in my department are even hearing about the possibility of taking positions. Because that's something that I felt that it would be a morale deflation. It would just really be a real problem for them. That's why I've been trying to meet with you all and to just explain how significant and important these positions are. I've been with this town for 24 years. I've seen this department through thick and thin, and I've been in this position as chief coming up on actually at 4 years where I was acting chief and then full-time chief. I've always known that we need more officers on the road, especially with Route 9 corridor, Route 85, Route 30, bordering some very busy towns. We're called for mutual aid to these towns, and we're around the clock. Like there's no time off. It's whoever's on. So it does come down to the amount of bodies that you have available 24/7, 365. That's why I came to the town and said that we need more people. The town wanted to have a staffing study. We spent $25,000 on a staffing study that said, you don't just need what you're asking for, you need 9 additional officers. We filled the lieutenant's position, which was suggested in the staffing study. We filled patrol positions, 3. And like Kathy said, every single hand was raised. I think I just saw 1 person or 2 that didn't have their hands raised. So to me, that's a commitment to public safety from the town residents. They want to see our officers on the roads and monitor the sites. Our residents keep track the Facebook pages and stuff, and they are constantly talking about speeders through town, almost being hit, afraid to walk on the roadway. Tim? It's constant, but we can't manage these things unless we have bodies out on the road. 1 arrest will tie up the entire shift, which leaves the town with no officers patrolling the road. So with this, even just the three that we have coming, well, we have one we brought, it was going to be a staggered hire so that we could work into the budget where it was October, January, and April. So we bumped up the January one because we found a great candidate who's already been through the academy and he's out in the FTO program right now. And then we bumped the, I'm sorry, we bumped the January one down to April, so we'd be doing the 2 in April. Like I said, it's been constant, and yes, we have everybody out there, and I came to the Super Saturday meeting with all the stats that we've been doing because morale's high right now because they finally feel like the town's listening, people support them, and they feel that they have the bodies to address some of these things in town that are going on. And if they don't have them right now, they're coming. And that's the key factor. We have, so I've already talked about department morale. We went through a rough period where we were losing a lot of people because we were at the end of a 3-year CBA and our pay was just not comparable to area departments. We fixed that with the town and the union, and we now have a great salary range, but it doesn't stop. There's other, I shared with Kathy and Andrew, some of these other departments with their starting salaries they're already jumping up because this profession is becoming a unicorn. Like there's not many people that want to do it. Yes, we have a lot of applicants right now, but nobody has the academy. We're starting from scratch. And what we're seeing is just because we hire them, we have to put them through an interview, a background, a physical, psychological. Some of them are not making it through that. And then they have to make it through a 6-month academy, which some of them do not make it through that academy. Then they have to make it through a 12-week FTO program. We've lost a few in the FTO program, whether it's officer safety, whatever it may come down to. We've even lost an officer that was a transfer from another department because didn't want to work the midnight shift, and other factors. And it's a tough job that you really have to have the right people in the positions. I've been preemptive. We identified school safety as an important thing. We didn't have a full-time SRO officer. Identified that we have to do that now. Let's just do it now. We don't have the bodies to do it, but it's something that we should have in place just because of all the things that are going on across the country. We have a great SRO. Schools love him. I'm sure, I hope by now you've heard some of the great things he's doing. But taking away positions is going to have to bring him back to patrol, which is going to be devastating for the schools. Speaking with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent principals, just doing so many great things. We need people to handle calls. With the new CBA, we have more time off allotted to the officers, which means more open shifts. If they're taking the shifts off, we need bodies to fill them. And we need enough bodies that can handle fatal accident on Route 9 or a domestic at the Red Roof. It comes down to you have to have your officers feel safe on the road. If it's only them, one other person, or even just 2, one's on the way, so much can happen in the short span of a couple minutes. So, we're talking about moving to a rec. That's also going to be, right now we have to have officers come in to watch prisoners. Sometimes if all 3 have to go on a call, the dispatch, it's not ideal, but the dispatch will have to keep an eye on the prisoner until they come back. That's no longer an option. Handling walk-ins. We've had domestics come right into the lobby of the station. So we need people available. Costco on the way. Costco is going to be inviting a whole other criminal element. So many positives to it, but there's a lot of fraud, shoplifting, things that happen when you open a giant retail store. Things happen in the parking lots of those stores. So we have you know, Route 495 that comes right through past our town. And it's called the Felony Lane Gang. If you want to look it up, they go from all the way down to New York, Florida, all the way up to up the coast. And they hit each town and they just keep moving. They hit each town and keep moving. And we're going to be seeing an increase because of just that particular thing, that one little element. Our detective unit, we only have one detective that's separated out from patrol. We have one part-time detective, but we have to incorporate him in patrol. There's no other department around us that only has one detective. I'll tell you that right now. Most departments have two detectives and a detective sergeant who supervises the whole unit along with them and handles cases. We have so many things going on. My one detective had to drop everything because of the accident we had on Friday. So all these other things are not being processed, not being investigated, can't be followed up because we don't have the people to do it. And that affects the town, it affects the residents. If you're a victim of a crime, that's gonna affect you, your family. And again, we're investing in our law enforcement and having the bodies to do these things, and that doesn't show results. And residents in this town expect a lot from us. And I want to be able to provide it, and I can't provide it if I don't have it. I've identified after being here for 24 years. Town events, we have the 300th anniversary coming up. We need bodies for that. We have a multitude of events going on throughout town that we're going to need officers to be there, whether it's traffic, whether it's just walking among the crowd. It's going to be embarrassing if I have to have Westboro officers for a Southborough 300th anniversary event.
Why is that embarrassing?
Well, it's just,
I'm not embarrassed about that at all.
Okay.
You know, come on, you know, sorry, chief.
Al, this is just one thing that I'm talking. I'm just going down, I'm just explaining. I'm sorry if I use that word. It's just a matter of, I want to be able to have the officers we need to keep an event safe. And best officers to have there are going to be people that know the town, know the streets, and give directions to people coming up to them and tell them who to talk to in the crowd if their child is missing or whatever it may be. You can't do that when you have other officers from other departments. So embarrassing is the wrong word, I'm sorry, but it comes down to you want people that know the town.
I'm sorry, but this is very, very, very insular. And it's costing us money. And, you know, we've got to start thinking about, you know, we have a regional fire system, and frankly, I think, you know, we need to start thinking a lot more on a more regional basis. I'm off the soapbox.
So we also have a lot of housing that's coming into this town. We have a lot of housing units being built. MBTA communities coming in. There's going to be a lot more people living closer together. So when there's domestics or yelling, families yelling at each other, we're going to get called. Same thing, this Massachusetts law is very strict. You put your hand on a family member, you're going to jail. And then we're tied back up with, the whole shift goes into the station. Like I said, I'm not sitting here, you know, I reached out to each one of you. You know, if you had any questions, needed any clarification, I feel very adamant that this is what my department needs. And this is what the residents have clearly asked for. When it was presented before them at town meeting. Like I said, every hand was raised,
So I think you need to clarify one thing. When Andrew and I were there, I left and then I got it and I got what you said tonight, but I'm not sure. You know, it took me this. So when you say school resource officer, and I am quite confident if you were to poll the families of children that are in schools, they absolutely support a full-time school resource officer. What you said to us that day is, yeah, you've got one right now, because you're backfilling what he would be doing on the patrol side, because you still need these positions filled to really truly have this person in place, right?
Right.
So what you're doing now to make it work is you're backfilling with overtime.
Right.
Right? Okay, so you really do need these positions filled, so we really can have a dedicated school resource officer and 2 detectives.
yeah, I would like to have, yes, exactly. 2
Okay.
detectives separated out and handle the amount of investigations that we have.
So, I want to do everything possible we can to keep these positions. And I'm just, making sense of this difference between these two rev caps, and it looked like the,
Andrew, there was a mistake. That's all it was. It's a mistake between what you saw and what you see right now.
yeah, but so it was in capital, right? That's the,
It was just the way the free cash was done.
Free
It's
cash,
a-
yeah,
The free cash wasn't computed right.
but that, all right, that doesn't make sense to me, but,
Right, so the rev cap that you looked at earlier
Yeah.
was using free cash to pay for a big chunk of capital, right? So it's going through a different category. And so it did go through there, but then we didn't show an offset as far as actually expending that money, and that's what the mistake was. So it's all fixed now, right? So it's just truly a mathematical mistake on the rev cap.
all right, I think I get it now.
So, if we keep the two officers, then in my quick calculation, we have to find very roughly $200,000 to come out of other budgets.
If you're trying to stay, if you want this to be zero,
Well,
because if
just,
you want to get this down to 4, right?
well, yes, I'd like to get it down below 4, but to 4, but just even if we, that would bring, I'm trying to figure out how to get the police department number down into 4%. That's roughly 200K. And which means that if we're going to have this 10.26% increase, we've got to find $200,000 out of other budgets, either out of capital or out of other operating budgets to essentially make up that difference. And, so we've got to cut somebody else. There's no free lunch here. And everybody, you all know that. So, we got to be, the price of keeping the 2 police officers in the budget is we have to find $200,000 in other budgets to cut. That's simple math.
No one's disagreeing with the fact that each police cost about $100,000.
Well, that's the salary cost. Then we have benefits and then equipment
I mean,
and
it's-
patrol.
I'm giving you an all-in number. They're starting at what, 65, 66? Yeah. So I'm giving you an all-in number with 100.
Will your overtime number come down to help offset some of this?
Because of the contractual increases in salaries, it increases the overtime. That's what it's called. And like I said in the past, our actuals are lining up for exactly what we.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, like what you're doing exactly what I want a department head to be doing, like, defend your people and your thing. I'm fully supportive of you doing that, and I'd expect nothing less. So I appreciate that. I mean, this is a little bit different than I feel like your presentation to us was at the Saturday meeting. Like, it seemed like things were pretty good, working pretty well. You're down those 2 people already. You're down technically 1 more. You're looking to backfill. I'm still having a little bit of a hard time understanding the full gap, and, spending more time with you would be necessary and beneficial to get that opportunity. But again, back to the private sector, the first thing you cut are open positions. So if we prioritize keeping the police positions that have been approved for this year, I'm fully supportive of pushing harder on other line items here to get the numbers to fall back.
And I can't stress you enough the importance of morale in a department. If you don't have it, you're not going to see the numbers that you want to see. Like on that Saturday, I showed you our increases over the years. And because of their proactivity, because of high morale, you're seeing officers out there writing a lot of tickets. I can't force them to write tickets. Like, there's no police chief that can say, get out there and write tickets or else.
What's the
against
revenue
law.
from the tickets?
So I wish I had it in front of me.
There were good numbers.
Yeah,
There was-
$250,000.
there's been a Significant.
$234,000 in either chapter 90, false alarms, false burglar alarms, and some of the other fines, fines. So $234,000 coming directly into the town. Because again, it's showing that increase in morale. We're telling these guys that we're having more people come. They're going to get off that midnight shift. They're going to have this go on. We're going to be able to do those units. We're going to be able to separate the detective out and keep the SRO in the schools and do the things that every other department around us is doing. And that makes a difference in morale.
All right, I can think. Who's? Kristlyn Laval? Sure, yeah.
Hi, yes, I just have one question. And first, thank you to the Southborough Police Department and Fire Department for your efforts. It's been a busy 2 weeks. My question is this, and it's not meant to deviate the conversation, nor is it to turn it political. It really is just a question about staffing. I'm glad you mentioned Costco. I actually hadn't even thought about the impact of, building out that area even beyond Costco. And then you already mentioned that we have the new complexes coming up on Southville and then Turnpike Road, a couple of those. So yeah, naturally, that's a lot more people in a closer setting. The other factor that I'm just curious if it's been discussed, and again, it's not meaning to get us off track, but has the state talked to you or has there been discussions about when ICE inevitably has more of a presence? And I know people think it's not going to happen in Southborough, but it does happen in communities like ours. They come after workers, et cetera. So I'm just curious if that's been part of the discussion because it seems that may increase the need as well.
I mean, we really are talking about budget things now and this.
No, I know, but I want to know if that's been factored in. I mean, that presumably will be like Costco, will be like other things. Like, has that been a discussion? That's all I want to know. And are we thinking about resourcing, which does tie back to budget?
It's not part of this budget, but it does come down to manpower if there is a public disturbance. We do have a policy, Kristen, I can send it to you, department policy about any type of interactions with ICE, immigration enforcement. Basic following Massachusetts law, we do not assist. We do not get involved with enforcement. We do not ask residents for their immigration status. It's one of those things where we're here to keep the peace, and that's where it falls. But like I said, if you send me an email, I can send the policy to you. It's one of those things where my officers are not doing ICE's work. We're here to enforce Massachusetts law. And that's it.
Thank you. I'll do that. Again, I just think if and when they do come in, you might see an increase in calls.
All right, thanks. Okay. I don't know what else we can really accomplish on this.
I think we've gone as far as we can for
Yeah.
tonight, and we bring you back, pick it back up on the third.
Okay. All right. Next item is the preparation for the special town meeting. What do you think? What do people think about taking a 5-minute break between now and?
Yes, good idea.
Supportive.
Okay. All right.
Aye.
I move that we take
Second.
a 5-minute recess.
Andrew, do you know that Jim wants to talk about the logistics?
Yeah.
behind it? Okay.
This is actually, you want to come up and kind of introduce okay.
There's been a bunch of stuff on social media that's just not accurate, so he's trying to dispel. some
Oh,
rumors.
okay. What kind of stuff?
This curtain that you can drop in the gym. Somebody said, you're not going to drop that curtain or something, so he just wants to.
sharing.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Chief.
Yes. Thanks a lot.
This is a 14-hour day.
I know sometimes the guys get a shift and they go home and they call them to come right back in and do another shift.
And think about it. Anything that he deals with through the day is not gonna be pleasant, right? I mean, they're just dealing with problems all day long.
Yes, people at their worst,
You know,
basically, right?
so it's not like he's got a day, oh, great day at the office time.
Right. No, I mean, it's a horrible, stressful job. And PS, that town meeting, every hand went up. Yes, absolutely. I know it. And he's really good at posting the photos, like the school resource officer coming in and a little toddler, first day of school, like shaking his hand, and it makes me cry. No, it's ridiculous.
Hey, Terry, are these mics live right now?
But who knows? So I guess assume they want to talk about that. We're gonna like try something.
some town meeting logistics for Monday night.
Jim Hagerty, Town Clerk. Check-in for the meeting will start at 5 PM. The check-in will be, as it always is, through the lobby of the Trotter School. Because we anticipate having, hopefully having a large number of younger people with children, they will be, parents with children will be directed to the gymnasium. We'll have 300 chairs set up in there, similar setup to what we've done the last couple of times. But in addition, we'll be moving in 6 of the tables from the cafeteria because they have round seats and so forth. The kids can do homework or whatever they want to play down the back of it. I've been in touch with one resident who did some work over at when we had the last meeting at Algonquin, and she's going to bring in toys and games and kind of coordinate that for the kids in the back.
It's a full voting room, right? Full voting. Like, there was a question recently, but that room is fully set up to vote in. The parents don't have to leave that room, correct?
I wish the people who spend their lives on Facebook would just spend 10 seconds and look at what's posted on the official town clerk's website instead of stirring up other people in the unnecessary controversy. Enough.
I don't know what you're talking about, but because
Yeah, absolutely. Whether someone's going to be in the auditorium, the cafeteria, or the gymnasium, they have the same everything. They can vote in there. They'll be able to speak. They'll be able to see everybody. Everyone has the same rights everywhere.
it is.
The only difference is they're going to be in the gymnasium versus the cafeteria because we expect to have that many people. Okay. It is very important, and I've stressed this in my notes to the blog and on the paper, that parents are responsible for watching their kids. Let me kind of walk a fine rope here. Okay. Not everybody that comes to vote at town meeting or comes to a town election or town meeting is somebody that you would trust your children with, or that you want to sit down and have a meal with. That's just a fact of life. Every registered voter has a right to participate, but I know something about the unseemly side of life. And it's very important for parents not to let their kids wander, right? I'm very adamant at elections. Frequently, I check to make sure the bathroom doors are locked so that nobody can inadvertently go into the kids' rooms. We have a police officer in the lobby. We're going to do all those things, but parents can't let their kids run wild. And unfortunately, some parents did that at Algonquin. But you've got to protect your kids, and they just have to watch the kids. But they will have the same microphones. There'll be a camera on the microphone. People can speak and so forth. We changed the color codes for our clickers to make it simpler. Very simply, the clickers for the people that will be in the auditorium have a white lanyard. For the people that will be, for the adults where there's overflow from the auditorium, they'll be in the cafeteria, those are red. And the clickers we borrowed from Northborough will be blue in the gymnasium. Once somebody has issued that color, that's it for the night. You can't swap, you can't go back and forth, right? We have 36 people that are volunteered to help us with this event. We're really lucky. A lot of towns scramble and struggle to get people. We're lucky that we have a waiting list of people to help us. We're really, really fortunate in that respect. We will have 10 members of the clicker response team in addition to those 34 people with their orange things, the students that'll be in the various rooms to help you with the clickers. We had 2 students in here today doing a second test of the clickers. We'll do another one live at Algonquin, at Trottier, and then we'll do another test 2 hours before the meeting. It has to do with the sleep pattern of the devices. They go into deep sleep after 24 hours. And if we can wake them up 2 hours before the event, then when a resident presses the button, it'll go live immediately. That's why we do it, just so there's no surprises for anybody. That's really about everyone. Everybody checks in through the lobby. We've changed the process for the check-ins to speed up the process quite a bit. And we'll have lots of people to direct everyone in the different directions. My biggest concern is the snow. That the snow and what we're forecast to get later on, that can eat up parking spaces. Parking's going to be tough. People will be parking probably near and walking up. We thought about getting the vans from the recreation. We've done that many times. Nobody takes the vans. They just don't, right? Even when we have them on Algonquin. So the fire department has been kind enough. They will have their light stanchions up in the parking lot to ensure it's properly lit out front. That's about it. One big change we've advertised is that families are more than welcome to bring any food for the kids. I'm sure the custodians will ever talk to me again, but it's a wooden floor in the gymnasium. We're good to go. And the custodians agreed to stay late that night to stack up the 300+ chairs we'll have so that we can get them out of there by 8 o'clock in the morning. So it'd be similar experience everybody had, color-coded clickers. Once you're in a room, you're in the room for the night. There's no going back and forth.
You can't go back and forth. You go to one room, you can't go back and forth to another room.
So
Because every clicker is basically a vote. All right, so we can't, it's a nightmare to ensure that the clickers stay where they are. So if somebody decides to go in the gymnasium, they're in the gymnasium for the night. They're not going to be able to go back to the auditorium. That's it. Any other questions? I hope we have a big crowd. We have seating capacity for over 1,000 people. And we have enough clickers to make that work. Okay. Any questions?
I know the number of warrants we printed was 500. We have 500 printed warrants.
Good. All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, so we're gonna meet at 5:30. We said 5:15?
5:15.
5:15, okay. For the pre-town meeting, for the select board. 4 articles.
the meeting before the meeting,
What do you say?
the meeting before the meeting.
Yeah, which we always do before town meeting, just to make sure, go over some last minute things, if there's gonna be an amendment, what we think about it, et cetera. So we all know the articles, 4 articles. I've spoken a lot with the town moderator, right?
Yeah.
And Jim Hegarty about the format. So one important thing, I prepared and put in the, distributed yesterday, a set of slides. I'm not a big slide guy. This is what I put together, though. The idea is an opening presentation. The moderator says. Yeah, so that we'd have the presentation can be 12 minutes. And the plan is, I've been coordinating this also with schools so that roughly half of it, begin with the select board since we're sponsoring and moving the article. And then the second half of the presentation, Greg Martin and I will plan to make the presentation. What I put together is an overview that's trying to give people information about the overall purpose of what we're looking to do, the structure of the warrant, because it's been stressed to me, a lot of people are concerned they're going to come in. I'm confused on what I'm voting for, right? So the main points we're trying to make here are, Articles 1 to 3, these are feasibility studies. These aren't actual construction projects. These are studies you need to do before you have an actual construction project that you bring back to a future town meeting vote. And there's different options here because some of the feedback we got from the last town meeting, people wanted to have options. Here are the options. These are the recommendations of different boards. And then Article 4 is the roof replacement, explaining that if Article 1 passes, then we can reduce the amount that we're looking for Article 4. The slide that's just about background, this is pretty straightforward, right, about how we got here. There's a slide about some of the main takeaways from the survey that informed why we presented the first 3 articles that we did. The slides about Article 1, 2, and 3 are just providing the most basic information about them. I mean, one point that I might make on Article 3 is if Article 2 passes, we can reduce the amount that's in there by $80,000. So, when you do this exercise of you have to try to speak in just like 5 or 6 minutes about something complicated, it really forces you to try to simplify. So that's what I'm trying to do as much as possible. And then I've got a whole set of other, things that address questions that are likely to come up, right? About Bill Clempett's going to be there as well to talk about if there's questions about the Neary landfill, how that affects things.
On the screen, the power drive.
Andrew?
Yes.
The one comment I have, and this looks pretty good, is I think you ought to have one or two bullets about the free cash. And, I think we need to be clear that if we spend the free cash here, it will have a dollar spent here on these projects from free cash would mean, would have budget impacts in the fiscal 27 budget.
I totally agree. Emphasize, that's gonna be emphasized, and the vote that we took to not support Article 2 and Article 3 emphasized.
So this presentation, this has gone through many different iterations, and there was a slide in there. Where I would think to put it is, it would be the second to last slide. And, after Article 3, it's just a slide which explains, where I know it's a 4-1 vote, but explaining why the select board 4-1 recommends Article 1, but not Articles 2 and 3. And I think there's really two reasons. One is cost, budgetary concerns, and I think the other is that, I want to make sure I speak for us, the majority of us here, that the Neary renovation is, Al, the way you put it, realistically, Neary is going to be a school for the next 15 years. And I think that just reflects a sense that that's the most straightforward of the different building project options.
And I think
The
you use
others
that
are
adjective,
more
straightforward. Yeah, it's a good adjective.
straightforward and could be accomplished quicker than the rest of them. Is that
Whether you do
fair?
the long version or the short version, we believe Article 1 is the better project, and straightforward is a really good adjective to use there.
And then, we could put some info about the impact on free cash.
Yeah.
Can you?
People don't understand town finance.
Yeah.
And, but there is a direct impact on your taxes.
I don't know if you go into, we're looking at an override, maybe you do, next month when we meet. So we're really trying to keep the budget increase every year as low as possible. And that's one of the primary reasons we didn't support 2 and 3. We think 1's a better project, and we just don't want to spend the money on 2 and 3.
Can I ask a
Yep.
question of people who've been involved with the school? Overall, if 1 and 2 and 3 are looked at, in the end, is 1 still going to be the least expensive compared to 2 and 3 to build?
We don't know.
We don't,
That's the purpose of
we don't
doing
know
this
that.
stuff.
Because it seems to me that just looking at it, I would guess the 2 and 3 would be more expensive than 1.
You can take it with a grain of salt, but the pre-K through 8 work has a magnitude of scale of expectation. It's a grain of salt, but I would say that the numbers for 3, I'd say that the expectation for all of them is probably closer than not. So I would think that they might be closer to the final cost per project based upon the
You
summer.
think they'd all cost about the same?
I think they're gonna be relatively near each other.
Okay.
I
I mean,
think,
I'm
I
But that's-
think
this
Neary,
is Tim's
my bet is
opinion.
Neary's the cheapest, okay? Not by a lot. That Finn is the most expensive, doing the 4-year there because all the stuff you gotta do there, and Trottery's in between. So,
Alright.
anyway, we'll see.
I would suggest it not fall at the end, Andrew. Put it at the beginning. Dolman's feedback, they did not know that they could vote on all 4 of these. They thought they had to pick their favorite project and move forward, and select down to one choice, despite the fact that I mentioned that a couple of times during that discussion. So being explicit that you can choose to do all of them, I think needs to be.
And I would do it, I don't think it needs to have a bullet point in this, and maybe I will
Right at the
add a bullet
beginning.
point in the overview of Articles 1 of explaining, town meeting, you can choose,
You
Up
can
to
vote
3 projects.
You can vote
you
for
could vote
all
for
of them.
0, 1, 2, or 3. There'd be different budget impacts to that.
Yeah.
Explain.
To your
You
tax
could-
bill
you
for
could
fiscal
vote
year
yes
27.
on all
Yep.
3. and-
Yep.
Yeah.
And
To the tax bill,
Yeah.
fiscal year 27.
Yeah.
So that was something that they brought up to me. And on Article 1, well, technically it's more so 4, should be really in 4, is the 30% threshold element. They really wanted to kind of understand that and why is 30% being talked about and how does it affect the project?
All right, so, but if we pass Article 1, that just becomes
It comes off, but it's still a question. Why is there a
It's
two
something
point?
we will be prepared collectively to address, but
And I think we need to speak with one tongue on this one. We are waiting for the valuation for 1/1/26 in Neary School, and that will determine whether you have breached it or not. We actually don't expect that to happen at this point, per conversations with possibility.
And the last thing that I would add to that particular conversation is the Socotec report is a estimate of what this should cost to go out to bid. So explaining the bid versus estimate conversation is important here because there is confusion around what is an estimate and then when it goes on to bid, how many companies bid on this and how do you actually bring the project forward? So an overall approved number for a company to then bid against and then put a project together. Those were the couple points of confusion that
That's good.
we spent
feedback.
about.
Yeah.
okay. So Mark Robidoux, I asked him to be here, so he's patiently with us. So you want to bring him over? Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thank you for very patiently waiting through our discussion here.
My pleasure.
So you're going to be with us on Monday night, right?
Yes.
Okay. The main reason, and this is just feedback I've received from people, is, okay, if Article 1 passes, then Article 4 gets reduced to the roof, and we feel like we're already working on, a lot of the deferred maintenance code upgrades, et cetera. In a scenario where Article 1 doesn't pass, we feel like we're going to expect questions in the discussion about Article 4 about what gets triggered when and how the role that you as the building inspector play in that. Do you feel like you can be prepared to discuss that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, while you're here, it's Kathy Cook. You may want to have a chat with Paul Sabelli before Monday. He has not valued properties as 1/1/26 yet. That's what he's working on. And it takes him several months to get that done. So it won't be done probably before September, October. But he is comfortable, given the lack of movement in the value of Neary over the last few years, that the value will increase so that we comfortably fit the 4.5 inside the 30%. But you may want to hear that from him directly, not from me.
Okay, I will have a conversation with him. What I will tell you is I have an email that I have printed out here from Paul. We've discussed this a little bit, and the full and fair cash value has a definition, and it has to do with the equalized assessed value set by the DOER. So when you factor that into the value that he has, it brings it up to about 14 million. So that would allow an approximate expenditure of 4,200,000. Above that would trigger, full accessibility.
Okay. Any other questions or comments you think we should offer to Mark here? Is here with us? All right. So that's really the main point we wanted to impress upon you, was just be prepared to answer questions like that. I know, sorry, you've waited through a pretty long meeting here just to hear that message, but.
Well, the good news is that I've answered the question so many times in the the last few weeks that I have a pretty strong concept of it now. So
excellent. All right. All right, thanks, Mark.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Sandra, I think this is good too. I agree with that. I think it's good.
Okay.
Other than the couple comments we made.
So then I will move Article 1, and then we'll have this presentation.
Are you going to stand up there with Greg, or are you going to go first and he's going to?
I'm going to go first, and the idea is, and we got kind of permission from the moderator that even though usually you're not allowed to make a presentation about every single article in the entire work, right? But here we agree that this is a circumstance where everything is so interrelated. If we didn't do this, people would be so confused that we first explain how it all interrelates, right? And then we'll take up each article. I'll move Article 1. There'll be a presentation. Who knows what people will say next? There'll be a vote. And then that vote, we should also have canned, basically.
I'll do that.
Okay, well,
Okay, I'll
where I was
write-
getting that, we don't need to make, I've clarified this with Jim Hegarty. We don't need to make any amendments based on votes that are taken.
We
on
just need to
everything.
change the motion.
We need to change the motion, so we should already be prepared that have already written out in a Word document so that if Article 1 passes, we just email it to Jim that it's ready. So if Article 1 passes, whoever moves Article 4 will have it written out. This is
So
exactly.
he'll just have
what-
two motions and he's gonna use the one that,
Yes,
okay.
yes. And then also if Article 2 passes, then you could reduce Article 3 by $80,000.
So Vanessa, who's gonna pop the motions on the screen? You and Jay?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
you'll have two for one and you'll know which one you're gonna use.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I like Tim's point about reiterating, we can vote for all four of them. You can't, it's not just you have to pick one.
Yeah, each article stands on its own.
Yep.
So are you and Greg gonna be on the stage or is it gonna make you down in the well?
I've been meaning to ask that question. I would much prefer to be up at the
course,
stage or something like this.
And you're gonna put this on the screen or this is gonna
Yes,
be?
yes, put that on the screen.
Another piece of feedback on this is because we're voting for a total number, so say Article 2, 500,000. On the phase 1 and phase 2 areas, list down the amount of money that each phase
Yeah.
should be.
I'm not gonna do that just because this is where when you talk it out and you have to discipline yourself, that these are the things that make it go 15 minutes, these little things.
They make it go.
These are things you can deal with and if people have questions about it.
Well, then maybe,
So then you're moving Articles 2 and 3,
yep,
right? So
but am
you
I,
can take
am I
care
not
of that.
making a presentation or any comments to go along with it? Greg's doing
That's up
that?
to you. Well,
Okay.
no one, in the presentation, the overview, there's, what you see is what you get here about Article 2 and 3.
So
You want
just to be
people
clear,
to vote for 2 and 3.
Yeah.
You move it and then you say what you want.
just to be clear, you move Articles 2 and 3 and they get modified, you have to actually read the wording of the articles. As opposed, you have to, because that's what's on.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Tim, I don't think you make a presentation on 2 and 3, but we've got to be ready to answer questions on 2 or 3, and that is, who answers those? Greg Martineau?
Chelsea with her numbers.
Chelsea won't necessarily be at a microphone, so she'd have to get up. Greg should still be.
Yeah, we'll just have to work that out, but
I think you're well qualified to.
I mean, I can field a lot of these, and the ones that I don't feel comfortable answering, ask Paul to pass it to somebody else. He's willing to let
Yep.
me,
Put the superintendent on the spot.
yeah.
so, all right, so that's a reason why, let's say questions like this come up, what we usually do is we're all here and we have a discussion among the board about, okay, which of us is going to answer this question, right? An unexpected amendment comes up.
I don't know what people would amend, but I still think Martineau should answer these questions.
Yep.
It's a school committee. This is a school building we're talking about.
Yeah.
Let
Another
people
thing
have
that came
answers.
up at the pre-town meeting was ordinarily, someone that's not a resident needs permission from the hall to speak, right? Apparently, Kate Federoff said there's actually somewhere in state statute, there's something that says school superintendents are allowed, just as a matter of right, are allowed to speak at town meeting. I'll have to look at that, but, so I don't think he needs special permission, but
He's always on that list anyways.
Yeah.
that Jim does.
And then they've got to get the vendor
Yeah.
approved
Yep.
for the roof. But there's no reason to think that's not going to happen. People aren't going to say, we don't want to hear from you. Right?
I don't think so.
Have you heard his presentation?
No.
The vendors?
No, Greg Martin.
Oh.
So his is about 10 minutes, I think.
I
Alright.
listened to it last night.
Are we gonna see this before town meeting, or is it the first time we're gonna see this?
This,
The Greg's presentation.
I haven't seen it.
It's posted. It's
Oh,
on,
it's posted?
Chelsea, I saw her over the weekend. She said it's posted. So
Okay.
it's on the school
Yeah, it's got
website,
slides.
I think. What's that? It's evolving? They're updating it? Okay. Is that what you're gonna say,
The main
Tim?
reason why I bought this and put it in the packet so everyone can see it is just,
It's
feel
nice
like
and
this is
simple.
on behalf of the board, so just want to make sure we're all okay. There's nothing radically controversial in these
I
slides.
think it's great. It's very clear. This was one of the ones last night from the school.
Yeah, that's way out of date because that is all reflected in here. So we'll have to
It's
coordinate.
too complex to do at town meeting, I think.
All right, I'll talk to Greg about that. Okay. Anything else we should talk about Monday?
Do we need any handouts of any kind to help support anything that we didn't have printed? Because I was thinking too, all the work over the summer, I don't want to complicate things, and I think that the schools may have a different opinion today on the one thing I saw. But all the documents about the different options, about how they fall educationally, all that stuff was super useful and relevant. I've been asking Jay Tallerman about Article 97 understandings, because I was thinking it'd be good to have a handout for an Article 97 explanation, like what it is.
Well,
what
I
towns
think
have
that is
override.
so far in the weeds for this. It's one thing if we were approving the project, but this is just to get
Yeah.
the path forward as far as what to actually look at. So I hope we don't get into a chapter 97 discussion.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about this. I mean, I think that maybe. we'll just talk- Yeah, yeah. Again, where you have to go through the exercise of thinking about, all right, explain this whole thing in 5 minutes. Things like that quickly go off the. You've lived with this so much, you're a little bit in the weeds.
I spent 50-ish minutes explaining it from zero on Friday. So I had a really good opportunity to kind of, I had no pitch. I had the article in front, the warrant in front of me, and I was able to go through the entire thing and try to catch up a bunch of people. So I have a little bit of
Yeah.
growing pains trying this. And, you know, the feedback I just gave are the things that got us stumped for a while. So if we could get ahead of those feedback issues, I feel like we'd have a much better chance. But the feedback that I ultimately got was refine your pitch and make sure that it's clear as day what exactly we're doing, that you can do all four and so on. So if we get those couple, I think we'll be good.
Okay. So we should also talk about, I'm gonna move Article 1. Tim, you're gonna move Article 2 and 3. You're on, you make the presentation to, you know, why people should
Yep.
say yes. And then Article 4, someone should be, who wants to move
Yeah.
Article 4?
I'll do it. Okay, but go back to what you just said.
Oh, wait, no.
Tim is going to make a presentation on why you vote yes on 2 and 3,
Yes.
even though select board voted 1
Well-
for?
Well,
Here's the, okay.
sure.
If, yes, there's 4 of us, we voted not to support it, right? Okay, someone needs to move, we decided we wanted to put these on the warrant, right?
Yep.
Someone needs to actually move them,
I
right?
understand.
It makes sense that the person who moves it is the person who actually
Speaks to it.
speaks to it. This opening presentation will make clear, select board does not support 2 and 3, so.
The majority of the select.
Well, no, the select board.
I can't think of another better way to do it. The other would be,
I mean, and
why would one of us move it and then say we don't support it?
I was
Okay.
thinking more
Just-
about saying, this is here. But what I was gonna say was, this is here and I personally support it on the select board because, and then it would be like, to give options from what the town had said. So if the town decides they would like to spend tax money on this option, now's your chance to do it.
And Tim was in
And
the committee in the.
What the goal would be of that option. It would be
Well, I
very
think you've got to
simple.
say I was the only one on select board that has. voted
I'm more than
yes.
happy to say that, and I'm completely comfortable with that. So,
You're gonna do the
Okay.
roof? Hmm?
So
You're gonna
then-
do the roof?
So you
I'm
want to
happy
move
to do the
Article
roof.
4?
But Al said, no, you don't want me to do the roof?
Pardon?
You don't want me to do the roof?
No, I didn't say that. Well,
a little tricky, you gotta be
actually,
prepared to-
the roof is really the school committee.
The school committee is going to take care of the presentation. All right, but somebody needs to move it.
Okay, yeah.
The one little tricky part is you got to be prepared to, based on how Article 1.
Right, yeah, if it's not as in the warrant, then you got to read the.
That's why I wanted, just to make
Yeah,
sure that.
yeah.
that doesn't.
Kathy's handy with numbers.
Okay,
Thank you. Al.
all right. So Kathy, you'll do it.
All right.
Okay, so 2 remaining things here. I know this is the 3rd time we've done it. We've gone through the special time meeting. Now we talk about the warrant here. Here's the thing, we got to start to talk about this a little bit.
I agree.
because There's only 2 more meetings, unless we have an off-cycle meeting on the 10th. My big picture thing on this, I mean, this is a very straightforward annual town meeting warrant. There's nothing all that controversial or interesting in there, other than the budget, which is important, right? And we can expect there's some zoning articles that are going through a public hearing process, the planning board. I can,
Yeah, they're pulling the 55 and over. Do you know that?
yeah.
I did not know.
All right, I'll give you the update because I talked to Karina just
Yeah.
earlier this afternoon. So of the ones in the pipeline, there's 2 that are just involve scrivener's errors to statutes, the MBTA community statute, and taking out references to the shop C and making an affordable housing trust fund. That's not even worth discussing. There's a substantive one about changes to uses in the industrial park zone that is going to be on the warrant. CBA and planning board have worked together on this ADU bylaw. They're going to talk about it in the public hearing on the March 9th. The tricentennial committee banners one also. One that's coming off is the over 55. And what I heard was that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is okay with that.
It's not coming off forever. It's just coming off for now. So
Yeah.
they're assuming we're having a fall town meeting.
Okay. So that's the kind of preview there. In the calendar, it does make sense for us to try to have an opportunity to vote on these so that our votes are in the warrant. I think it makes sense.
And I'd like to hear from the planning board as far as at
Well,
least
here's what I was
the
gonna
IP
suggest.
changes.
Their substantive meeting is on March 9th. So, and then if we have a special meeting on the 10th, I don't think they're probably gonna, anyway, where it's going with this is we could just plan to, anyone who wants to take a position on this, just plan to attend the Monday night planning board hearing on March 9th.
Any questions you want, go there and
Yeah,
ask them. Okay.
yeah.
Andrew, your fence rails. What's going on here?
Yeah, I know Kevin has been working on it. That is being value engineered to bring it within the budget. I honestly, I gotta catch up with Bill and Kevin about that, but I know I got an email from Lisa Brasio asking us to come in for another meeting about that, but
So we really may need more money for those rails?
I don't want to do that.
How can rails cost?
Yeah, we can't do that. We have to find a way to get it to fit within the existing.
So they're pulling the article for the splash pad and the dog park for now too. Again, thinking they're bringing that back in the fall because they're not ready for that because
Yeah.
parking is a real problem as far as trying to figure that out. So they're pulling that. So there's not going to be any substantive CPC articles other than the 50K to transfer to the, or whatever the number is, to Affordable House Trust.
So like the only articles in here that I thought we could just make a plan to make progress on tonight are in article pages 19 to 20.
Well, can I tell you two that are missing from here?
Yep.
These are, so can you write this down? We need to do the allocation to SAM, Software Access Media.
Okay.
right, From the PEG funds. And I assume that we're going to have to wait on the cemetery, whatever it's going to be, to the fall time meeting to really do it right, because we really haven't talked about it very much. I keep promising Mr. Litt, I'm going to go sit down with.
Well, we
Phil
have
Cundiff,
talked
and every
about
time,
it.
we have, but there's, some very detailed work that Tim has done that Bill kind of likes now.
Here's what I was gonna suggest, and we could kick it to the fall or not, but what I was gonna suggest is we just assign kind of a liaison for like the things that are in, just penciled in on 19 and 20. So for amending the scenic road bylaw, I think we should just wait for that for,
Who's doing that?
that's just been penciled in. I don't think we should do that until, just wait for fall. Does it, people agree on that?
Yes.
Cemetery commission, I mean, one of the things we could do is we could just kind of appoint someone as a point person here to work with Tim, work with Bill, work on the language and just bring it so that it's ready by like the 10th.
I can do that.
Okay.
All right. And then I will raise my hand for it if someone else doesn't, but you remember Jason Malinowski suggested that if there was, have something in the bylaw that allows, you have a capital article says
You can
A,
move.
B, C, D, E, right? And you can move money around. I could raise my hand to work with Jason on that. Or unless someone else wants to give it a shot.
Good luck.
All right. That's all I can think of to try to make progress on. I mean, this is shaping up to be a pretty plain vanilla annual town meeting warrant. I just think it reflects that we spend so much time working up the special town meeting that we haven't worked up anything super interesting.
Oh, there's many opportunities to go sideways.
It always is.
Oh, yeah. And
So I agree. This is so much more bland than I thought it was. I thought we had a bunch of stuff, but we don't. Even the planning board stuff is.
Well, I think it shows
Pretty
that
cut and dry.
like the goal setting meeting where you do it.
Yeah.
That's where the germs of the ideas that get on the warrant begin. But it was very intentional when you go back in June where we did not have on that Neary, right? It was when schools came in the fall and said, we want to move this forward. And we said, okay, we'll help you. And then we had meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting about it. So that's where all the time went. At least that's how I kind of justify this. All right, we're coming to the end here. Last item is potential budget requests in the state legislature for FY '27. These are kind of long shot requests that we make for, they're earmarks, right?
They are, yeah, in every year in the state budget.
Okay, and I talked to, or just texted Representative Donahue that, realistically, we should keep any asks under $50,000. So do you want to talk to the, the email
Sure.
you sent out?
Yep, so we were contacted by Representative Donahue's office last week about this, so I put a note out to the department heads. We're continuing to, collect ideas from them. One of the other ideas I suggested to the chair earlier is this would be the time to seek some money in the state budget for our tricentennial celebrations. Westboro got money, Shrewsbury's been given money.
Really?
In Easton, they got $35,000 for their
Absolutely put that in there.
tricentennial.
Can we put it toward a fence?
So we can add that to the list. But that would be another source of, funding some of the tricentennial events. Like Chief Newell was saying, the amount of police details, we've now moved because of the Jewish holiday, our parade, our gala, our tricentennial parade will be on a Sunday. That's a really expensive time to request police details, but it's necessary. So, we're looking for any other way to bring money in for the tricentennial celebration.
Given that other towns have been successful, I think we absolutely should do that. And we're hoping we're not going to spend the town's 30K that we allocated.
Right.
That's the
that
goal of
warrant
our
article.
committee, is to not have to spend
Mhm.
that. So it'd be nice to get the state to bring up some money.
Yep. But if board members have any other suggestions, I'll compile that.
That was
for our
the only
next meeting.
use of $50,000 that the town departments could come up with.
I'm still asking them to reply. I sent them a reminder earlier.
Well, another
today.
thing we could do is the $30,000 for, was it 30 we talked about?
Yes.
for tricentennial. That could be our
Yeah.
default ask, or we could just, I would feel comfortable just asking Mark and Vanessa to keep going with the departments, because there's
Yeah.
got to be some capital item that someone, but the thing is, it's a long shot, right? You can't take something, I don't think you should take something off the capital plan and ask the legislature for it, like it's kind of a little bit of a, although we did that for some of the funding.
not?
This, right? This room?
Hey, it's all coming out of this pocket, so.
Yeah.
And they are, of course, the rep and senator will be with you next Tuesday evening, so that's another opportunity
So
to
does-
advocate for that.
How do we feel about, we could just, that's the default is the tricentennial and just delegate to Mark and Vanessa. If the departments come up with something else that's good, that fits within 15.
But at least get
Okay.
4 or 5 good ones.
Yeah.
Get the,
Right.
get the list. That'd be
All right.
good.
Get something they really need.
Yep.
That would otherwise be funded by a future budget.
Yeah.
All right, Tim, you had a,
Tim Woodland Road. Look at the community advocate, not this past Friday, but the one before that. Northborough got a fair chunk of money. I think it was about $65,000 for sidewalks. So that's another
from the
opportunity.
state
to ask for.
legislature?
Yeah, they got it as an earmark.
As an earmark.
Yes.
Sidewalk would be nice.
Yeah, you could easily
Okay.
get the fire hydrant monitoring.
Yeah.
I thought about that when
Yeah.
I wrote that down earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, so there,
Yeah.
okay, look at that
Yeah.
one.
Do more than 15 for that, but 15 would be the starting point.
Buy a bunch and try them out and see
But
what happens.
Hopkinton got a grant to actually, and there is a program in the state to give grants to audit your water leakage problems. I mean, specifically for that. So we should still apply for
All
that, right? Hey, can we go back to the budget first, or go back to the annual town meeting for a second? I've got one I forgot. Lisa Rochelle and I talked about one we'd like to see added.
Which is,
This is a budget thing, so we don't decide tonight. Everybody knows we've got a talent scholarship fund, right? And everyone knows that it used to be funded in large part by people taking the real estate tax bill and checking a box and
it's on the
donate-
second side of it, right?
Yeah, and now because of a variety of reasons, including that people pay a lot of this electronically, they don't even look at it. So there's no money coming into that fund. The only reason it got funded last year is because that poor woman died in the snowmobile accident and Dave Ferris donated a lot of money because he was good friends
Yeah.
with us. So that's how we got it funded last year. But there's nothing in it. And so if the town really wants to keep doing that program, just like we did with the Southborough Cultural Arts Committee, where we give them now $4,000 a year because they had no money. Lisa and I are hoping that we will consider adding something to the budget each year to fund this program, so we don't have to keep begging to try to get it funded at the last minute, which is what's happened the last 2 years. So anyway, we're talking, $6, $7, $8,000. So
All right,
can
something
everybody
to
give it some
consider.
thought and we can talk
Yeah.
about it?
Also just shame us all into contributing to this. I know that's what it's something you just don't remember to do. I
No.
pay through my mortgage, right? So. Okay. Are we done?
Yes.
Yep.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay.